And I think it's important to point out that the director did not finish reading the book.
No, he didn't. I was about to get to that.
He said it was too boring. So
too boring. Yeah, he admits it in the commentary track that he never read the book.
Yeah.
And Neil Patrick Harris gets so mad at him because it's like, you made us read it.
It's so good.
It's important for the actor meat to read.
Right.
The meat. And that's a good way to describe the characters in this movie.
Welcome to Certain POVs, Another Past podcast with Case and Sam. This week is a 5th episode, so we're talking about a movie that overcame adversity. Let's celebrate the creativity of the filmmakers.
Welcome back to Another Past podcast. I'm Case Aiken, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Sam Alicea.
Hi!
And today, we are doing a 5th episode, which means that we are talking about a movie that was good.
Woo!
Yay!
I know, it's wild to be talking about one of those things on a show that is dedicated to looking at movies that we find fascinating but flawed. And while this movie didn't do too well at the box office, I don't give a shit. This is my goddamn show. We are going to talk about movies that I think make a lot of sense. And this is a goddamn cult classic for a reason. And to have a conversation about Starship Troopers, the just amazing satirical piece on just the machine that is 20th century Western civilization. We are joined by John Lestrange.
Hello, that's me. I'm John Lestrange.
And Samantha Perez.
Hello, that's me.
And I'm going to be saying Sam Perez and Sam Alicea a lot on this call just to keep it distinct because we've had this issue before. Sam just happens to be a name that is very difficult to put a little stank on it to indicate which one we're talking about. So I've got to put a
only
last
one
name.
syllable. It's hard to stankify one syllable.
Right?
It's true. And I've always been more of a Sam than I am a Samantha. So, I mean, I guess you could call me Samantha. It is my full name. You could. But I'm more of a Sam. Always have been.
So, look, we're talking about Starship Troopers. And to have a conversation about Starship Troopers, it's a big conversation. So we've got two wonderful guests right now. But we are doing this in two panels because there is so much to talk about this movie. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that makes it worth us talking about. There's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of reception to the movie and so forth. But look, it's hard to talk about Starship Troopers without a conversation about the sociological factors that go into the reception of the movie, because this movie is not subtle.
You would think it would be received as not subtle.
Well, that's right. You would think it would be received as not subtle, but this movie is not subtle. And I kind of I just want to talk about it from the perspective of look, the two of you as guests are guests who have big thoughts about the state of the world and about the terrible systems that go into making the world the way it is. And that is why I love the both of you as human beings and why I wanted you here for this particular call. So let's have a conversation about our respective relationship with this property. And then we're going to get into a conversation about what this property actually is saying. So because we're doing this in two panels, today we are talking with Sam and John. And then we're going to cut to a different panel that we're going to record tomorrow with Case Lehtinen and Mitch Punpayuk, who are wonderful friends of the show, who have lots of things to talk about the movie elements of it. So we're going to talk about all of that. There's a lot of injuries behind the scenes. There's a lot of reception issues and so forth. But right now, we are going to talk about this movie. And wow, I'll start here. So I was interested in this movie because of the trailer. I didn't know anything about the book. I didn't know anything about the property. I saw the trailer for this in theaters and I was like, that looks really goddamn cool. It was a movie that was here's the humanity pushing out into space. And now we are coming across bugs who are pushing back. And it was a big thing for me to experience that. And then, because this movie came out, what was it, 97?
97.
Yeah. So when this movie came out in 97, I was 13 and an adolescent, mostly straight boy. And this movie had some stuff going on in it that was appealing to an adolescent, mostly straight boy. So there's a lot of reasons that I was interested in this movie just in general. But when it came out, it checked off so many goddamn boxes for me. I was fascinated with the iconography. I was fascinated with the opposing army that they fought. I was interested in the philosophy that was presented in the movie. I was, again, 13, so I like this is the danger of satire, which is that I took it kind of directly at the time. And this was a prompt for me to read the books, which I rather enjoyed at the time. And I still actually think there's a lot of like interesting stuff going on in the books. But yeah, like I didn't understand that this was satire for a long ass time. Like it's a movie that is explicitly a satirical work, but like the thing about it is it's a satirical work where the director and everyone is in on the joke. And so if you, the audience, are not in on it, you may take it as gospel. And so that's sort of my approach coming into this. And then as I've gotten older, I have come to understand just how much camp is in this movie. Like it's ridiculous watching it. I watched both directors' commentaries, the director's commentary with the screenwriter and the director's commentary with a good chunk of the cast going into this one. And it is amazing how goddamn blunt everyone is about what this movie is. It is not a subtle movie in any way, shape, or form. But it took me a while to understand that. And I love works that sort of like open up as I like come back and approach them more and more as I get older. And so that is the thing that I'm really happy about discussing this movie. Sam, Alicea, what is your experience with this movie?
I'm older than you, so I was like 16, 17 when this came out, and I went to the theater to see it, even though I did not want to because I do not like bugs. And the trailers very prominently show the bugs, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to. And I will be honest with you, I probably spent most of those bug scenes with my eyes closed because they were giant, and I did not like that. I did not like it. The movie just kind of like, when I first saw it, hit like this kind of odd note because I think at the time, like I was pretty young, but I understood that there was something off, but I wasn't sure what was, like you're like, it's so close to getting it, but not quite. And then I just was like, no, bugs, I can't. So that was my first experience. And then I had rewatched it later on in my mid-20s, and I was like, oh. Oh, and like it was like it was dawning on me of like, I still like I found myself when on my rewatch, like, and I was uncomfortable the first time I watched it and the second time I watched it, and now years later, every time I laugh and I also cringe when when the soldiers are on the lakefront with the kids kind of being
with the
like,
kids scene,
yeah,
yes.
this is great. And they're like,
Yeah, and they're handing out ammo to all the kids.
well, it's like the part that makes me cringe the hardest is when they start like handing over the guns, just like very nonchalantly. Like, I don't know anything about those guns. I don't know if there's a safety on them, but it just seems so irresponsible. And the kids are. There's one scene where the kids are like yanking, like kind of doing a push pull on the things. And when I was 16 to even now, like this morning when I rewatched it again for the millionth time, I was like, this still makes me so gosh darn uncomfortable. Like this is really like this is everything the movie has always been for me. I have been uncomfortable first for the bugs and then for everything else all the time. This movie makes me uncomfortable. Sometimes in a positive way because it's pointing out things, but that's my experience with this movie. I watch it anytime it's on, though. I do still close my eyes for some of the bug scenes, though.
No, but that's good to like start off strong on this episode and say where this falls on your doing chores hierarchy, which is like you'll watch this anytime.
This is definitely like I don't even need to be doing chores. I will have something nearby that I can pick up during bug scenes, even though I know they're vital. Like I wouldn't cut anything from this film, even though I think it's too long for someone who's uncomfortable with bugs. But that's besides the point. All I'm saying is I need a distraction. I need my cell phone. I need to go on something to distract myself during some of the bug scenes. But I'll still watch it. And I may not, maybe it's laundry. Maybe there is some folding of laundry during bug scenes.
No, that's totally fair.
That's my scale.
All right. So, John, how about you?
Yeah, so just to peel back the curtain a little bit, I have a master's degree in Holocaust and Genocide Studies and have been doing social media education in that field for a number of years now. And I just saw Starship Troopers for the first time yesterday, which feels very weird to say because it does very much feel like something that I should have seen previously. Because we're all dating ourselves here, I was 7 when this movie came out. I am a wee baby on this call. But the like I'd been aware of Starship Troopers. I'm aware of, Heinlein. I was aware of the movie and sort of the, broader differences between the two things. And obviously, I think anyone who's even heard of Starship Troopers has heard about the fact that it was designed to be satire and was not even remotely received that way when it came out. And it reminds me, whenever I think about just sort of that aspect of the movie, the existence of Poe's law, which I'm not sure. Is everyone familiar with Poe's law?
Regardless of our familiarity, which I'm actually not off the top of my head, you might as well share it.
So Poe's law is just it's an old internet adage, and it basically says that unless there is just a very specific indicator of tone or authorial intent, any parody or sarcastic or satirical expression of extremist views is just gonna look like extremist views. Right. It's sort of like the big problem with, satire and comedy today is that you can't really satirize the current regime in the US because to do that, you would have to be able to exaggerate it. And you literally can't. There's no room above where it's already at to fit the satire in, which is sort of the field that Starship Troopers hit when it came out. I mean, the book came out in 59, like after the Korean War, right in the beginning of Vietnam, after World War II, and the fall of Italian and, German fascism. And it came out in like 1997 when we're all like, hugely involved for the first time in the Middle East. So it was not the time to try and satirize like just sort of the Western military experience without just going full Blazing Saddles on it.
Right. And like the movie tries, it tries
does.
really hard. The second you know that it's supposed to be satire, you can't unsee it. But god damn, if you don't know, yeah.
Right, yeah. And that's sort of the problem with satire just as a field, right? You assume that the audience will be smart enough to get it, but the average, reading comprehension level of an adult in the United States is a 6th grade level now. So the book is already too advanced for most adult readers in the United States, let alone a movie which, doesn't have the luxury of holding your hand at the pace that you go through it at.
Right. And I mean, we should acknowledge the fact that the movie and the book have very different goals. Yeah. All right. So that's your experience with this, John.
Also, there are apparently sequels.
Yes, there are. There
There
are
are several like straight
there
to
are two
DVD
direct
sequels,
and then there was a series, a TV show, The Roughnecks, that came out in response to this, which was a full CGI cartoon.
Yeah, that was insane to learn that there were in 2004 and 2008 they just decided, yeah, we'll do more of this.
Yeah. There's also the fact that like StarCraft exists, which
right. I was about to say most, like, especially in the like video game space, most of our sci-fi action is in some way a spiritual sequel to Starship Troopers.
Right. Especially the book. The book is extremely influential to the actual like sci-fi world space. Like Heinlein is just influential in that regard, but like this movie is directly inspirational for Starship Troopers. No one can look at the brain bug and then look at the overlords from the Zerg and not like see how those are like directly related concepts. On that note, Sam Perez, what is your experience with this movie and with this franchise?
Yeah, so this is a movie that I was also 7 when the movie came out, so we are of a similar era. When it was first out, it was before my time. I remember being a teenager and seeing it on TV. So I probably saw some very chopped down like TBS edits of it. And when I first saw it, I definitely didn't pay a whole lot of attention, didn't really get it. It was background noise, bug killing action movie. And I didn't initially think a whole lot about it. I remember going to see the riff tracks live of it when I was in college, and they were talking over it so much that I also didn't get a real opportunity to think about what it was and what it was doing. But I was aware of kind of what it was and what its goals were. It was relatively recently, like in the last few years, I started thinking about it again because it comes up in conversations about other franchises that are doing, like we were saying, the aesthetic is everywhere in any kind of sci-fi action, but when there's thematic conversations about things doing something similar, like Warhammer 40K, or really recently like Helldivers, like it comes up in things that are more deliberately kind of trying to be like spiritual successors to the goals of either the movie or the book. And so it had been on my mind both in just other conversations it had come up in and just in the like this state of the world as it is, where we're engaging more directly with the consequences of trying to drum up violent opposition for some kind of outgroup as the cause of our troubles. And so it became something to think about more. For when I was told we were going to do this for the podcast, was the first time I had rewatched it in a really long time. And like I said, I knew kind of what it was and what it was doing and why it was popular. I was surprised. I was impressed on rewatch how much I like this movie, how much I like what it's doing, and just kind of seeing these depictions of kind of these proto images of some of our, like the popular myth we have of the space marine fighting weird gross bugs from another planet, and just how resonant that is with kind of the way a lot of people are being tempted to view the world again was something.
Yeah, so like the day that we're recording this, we just dropped the episode on Troy, and one of the things that I had made a point about was that it was the perspective of a centrist liberal trying to articulate the Middle East conflict of the early 2000s by way of articulating it through the window, like through the lens of this ancient world, ancient world war, as it were. And it's interesting looking at this movie right now, and looking at the world today, like, oh my God, when we booked this call, like the world, we might be at war at the moment when we're recording this. We don't really know for sure.
War, we're going to war.
Yeah,
war. There was a lot of that GIF in my group chats.
Yeah, and we'll see how things actually shake out, because like we're all fairly gun shy about going into like real wars these days, because the consequences would be real bad if any of those real wars really like broke out.
Yeah, that's why we've got robots for that.
Yeah. Robots that are creating like weird like knock-on effects of like not having enough pilots anymore for like airlines and so forth, because we don't have enough like veterans to like take up the. Anyway, sorry, this is going to be a very lefty call. We should just like note that one, but we have to peel that Band-Aid off right now.
Yeah, but it's telling how influential this movie is on kind of our psyche, on how we think about these things, because there were a lot of like I said, there was a lot of Starship Trooper gifs in my group chats, and like there are pretty frequently when tensions are rising globally or politically, like it's
a very gifable movie.
Yeah.
And like it's like, as we've been saying, it's not subtle. It was unfortunately unsubtle in a way that people took the opposite way that it was intended, which is an unfortunately common thing in the viewing of really any kind of media that tries to satirize right-wing views. Like, people thought Rorschach was the hero, and Alan Moore's over there, shaking his poor sad wizard head at this. And same thing with Homelander in The Boys.
Yeah.
But it is different, right? Because if you look at reviews, if you look at like the discourse around when this movie came out, even intelligent,
Oh
like
yeah.
savvy people. Like it just like didn't seem to get like even Roger Ebert like said like in his review said like it has like there's potentially like there's a satirical edge to some of this. Like it was still it didn't hit with audiences that like the satire was the point. Like even some thoughtful people said like I think there might be kind of a bit here, which is
it's too subtle in some ways, and like which is weird because like
right.
man again, once you know, you can't unsee it. Like we just have to
Yep.
keep saying that about this movie. Like once you know it's satire, you cannot unsee all of the elements that are in there. But going into this movie, there are a lot of utopian elements going on. Like it's supposed to be a fascist utopia. And so if you are not coming at it from the lens of like, well, this is a fascist utopia, you might just see the utopian elements of it. Like there's a gender normity like going on with everyone, which is like kind of refreshing in it.
Mhm.
It's also like not a classic element of fascism.
Mhm.
Right.
Right, there are like generally considered to be, we're going to get like deep dive into like fascism because this is unfortunately my area of specialty. There are generally considered 14 characteristics of fascism, whether you go with Umberto Eco's list from Fascism from 1995, or you go from Lawrence Britt's updated list from a little bit later, which is basically the exact same list. It's almost just plagiarized, but like sexism is a huge part of classical fascism, and machismo, and just sort of like a very strict like gender role hierarchy is like such a huge part of like Nazi and Italian and like every other kind of Spanish fascism that you can think of. But that's not a thing that exists in Starship Troopers. It's sort of like it does fascism in like the classic military way, and its obsession with, you know, fighting a perpetual enemy, and you know how your best way to improve in life and serve the state is through joining the military. But beyond that, it does just sort of like paint a pretty glossy picture of a world. Like the imperial core,
Yeah, I
right,
mean,
is
like
still good.
there's an argument about this movie that it is specifically trying to ape fascist propaganda. It's not just
Yes.
like a fascist world, but it is supposed to be a fascist utopia specifically. That it is trying to present a world that is so wonderful because of the regime that it's under. Except there's a lot of stuff going on in the movie that is trying to like put the tongue firmly in the cheek there. The fact that almost no adults in the movie, and by adults I mean like people who have gotten out of college age, like no adult in there is unscathed. I mean, we've got like every single person is missing a limb or in some way like crippled. It's a really horrific thing that is put on the society if they are participants in this society.
Yeah.
But yes, it is a world that is presented as being pretty goddamn dope because of the state.
Right.
I think where some of the complexity comes in and why the movie feels a little confused sometimes in how it's trying to do the satire, right? Like it's like sometimes it feels like it is trying to do a like let's just shoot this movie as if this movie is propaganda for the ideals. And then sometimes they do the here's an almost SNL skit, like video sting in the middle. You have the shots like, oh, the infantry made me the man I am today, while the camera pans down to his severed legs. Like there's some
Right. Yes.
obvious like, but then there are like the back half of the movie does a lot more of just we're gonna film this like it's a straight propaganda film, and the implications are supposed to be why this is satire. And I think part of the reason for that is because of the weird, or I guess the unique structure like of how this movie came about, right? It's not written entirely from scratch as a satire of fascism. It is in antagonistic conversation with a source that it kind of disagrees with.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think that's why it's not like if you were writing this from scratch with the 14 points of fascism, there's stuff you wouldn't do because they're adapting and having a conversation with a particular view of why a military society with service-based rights
Mhm.
would be better than what we have. And so that just brings an angle to the world that it created because they're adapting that world that is supposed to be utopia according to a particular viewpoint. and hanging lampshades on why this is actually kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Right. It does feel very much like they were trying to make two separate movies and then just sort of like half of this movie is like an old Nazi propaganda film like Olympia or Triumph of the Will, and the other half of it is just straight Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
And they tried to Frankenstein them together, and they're just the dissonance doesn't work in a lot of places, and it does make a confusing message.
Yeah, basically like it feels like half of the movie is Warhammer and half of the movie is Helldivers, and like that's kind of why those split off, right? Because like Warhammer.
Jesus, that's a little bit more topical than my reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. No, because right. Go ahead.
But what I was gonna say is it also doesn't help that like the cast is all devastatingly attractive. You know, that's like part of it, right? Like because that's
part of the type of propaganda.
Yeah.
But
but
that
I
specifically
remember like
is the propaganda of we want to have beautiful people who are in on the joke. You know, it's interesting watching the making of featurettes and the cast commentary track, listening to like Casper Van Dien and Dina Meyer and Neil Patrick Harris, and they're very in on the joke of this all.
Well, good, but I'm old enough to remember like the actual like rollout for this film, and it mostly focused on how good looking everyone in this film was and bugs. Like, and so I think like
well,
at the time, like lost in translation is because like literally people were just like, did you see Denise Richards? Like that, you know, like that was the late 90s, guys. Like that was basically
we should talk about
everything.
that, because this is the breakout role for Denise Richards. Like this, and then Wild Things, and then whatever the World Is Not Enough, the James Bond movie. Like that's her triple whammy, becoming like a huge like superstar. That's why she has a Bravo TV show about her being a mom to two girls, one of whom has an OnlyFans account, and one is like a super Christian. Like it's a weird world, and it kind of goes back to this goddamn movie.
Yeah.
Like we've got Denise Richards, who is just so pretty. Casper Van Dien, who is like an impossible person, right?
A
Like
marble statue.
Yeah, like the shot when they're like, look, like when he gets like promoted the first time when he's in boot camp, and they're like, look at how proud he is. Like that's not a person, right? Like like that's something Michelangelo like took and chiseled away at. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And then, you know, we got Doogie Howser, which, by the way, the commentary tracks are so fascinating because they are clearly from like 2004-ish era. So it's before How I Met Your Mother, and Neil Patrick Harris has not blown up the way he would go on to blow up. And he is so pensive talking about this movie. It's a really interesting like vantage point on this person, like in his whole progression as a star.
There are, you know, aspects of the choices that were made for this movie that make a lot more sense if there are certain pieces of like historical nonfiction literature and analysis that you are aware of, which is unfortunate because it does sort of require a like deeper understanding of, because it's unsubtle in a lot of ways, but some of the ways that it's trying to get across like fascist ideals and representations of fascist states are deceptively subtle, because like they cast a bunch of really hot people for what is effectively a like campy war propaganda movie. But there is a 1975 article called Fascinating Fascisms by Susan Sontag, which talks about that exact idea in Nazism, was that like their ideal Aryan, you know, armed force was, you know, brave, pretty, and stupid. Those were the qualities of your good Aryan Wehrmacht army, that they were, you know, that ideal of Aryan beauty, that they had a almost a fetish of courage, and that they were stupid and would follow orders, which like Starship Troopers does, but like you kind of have to know a certain amount of stuff about Nazism to have gotten that to begin with. Otherwise, you just have weirdly hot people in this war propaganda movie.
Yeah, and I think I think part of that disconnect that happened, right, is that I think there was an assumption of having already thought about a lot of this in the audience that I think comes from a writer and director who grew up in Nazi-occupied Netherlands, that just kind of, I think, assumed a front of mindness about some of these topics that just wasn't there for your standard American in 1997. which is why I think it hits better now, because like I think part of the reason that when people watch it now, they almost always get what's happening pretty quick. Part of that is just it's famous and we know what it is.
Yeah.
But like I watched it with my wife a couple nights ago, and she was kind of familiar with it, but not really. And within the first scene, right where they're doing the like I'm doing my part video, she's like, "Oh, is this a joke movie?" Like there's an awareness of both this genre and of like just there's a mental slot in our head for a movie making fun of these topics that I think just didn't exist then. And I think part of that is just a wider kind of movie that a lot of people have seen, and we're just doing a lot more thinking about fascism now here in America than
Oh,
we were
yes,
back
for
then.
sure. This movie resonates way more now, which is why we wanted to talk about it on the
Yeah.
show right now. Things feel like
Mm-hmm.
this movie, trying not to use the word resonates, but resonates is a good word for it. There are things that stand out about it. John, I want to circle back to your experience watching this for the first time with your perspective on it. Would you describe this as a successful piece of satire?
No.
Okay.
I mean, like, you know, going in, I went in, broadly knowing what it was trying to do. And I also have the advantage of my particular education and probably being more of a mindset that the creators of this film were hoping people would have going into it. But like it it's the explosions and the fighting are fun enough and the camp is ridiculous enough that a lot of people are just going to watch it and enjoy the cool explosions, and they're just going to enjoy the violence, and they're just going to like enjoy the fact that this is like a fascist utopia full of hot people, in the same way that like a lot of things that are meant to be satire being made today are like just taken at face value for what they are, and not by everyone, but you know there's unfortunately like we have a lot of very right-wing people like looking at things like Watchmen and like The Boys that are meant to be like satiring these kind of fascist superhero narratives and resonating with the bad guys. And I think good satire, like, it needs to be obvious, and as unsubtle as this film was, it wasn't unsubtle enough that the majority of its audience at the time was going to be able to get that. Because again, it was trying to be two separate movies that did not mesh in the way that it would have needed to be effective as satire.
Yep. So what ratio of people getting it versus not do you think is necessary to be good satire, though? Because
That's fair.
there's a lot, like someone is going to take it wrong, right? Like when
Yeah.
I look at things that have done similar stuff, I brought up Warhammer and I brought up Helldivers, right? Helldivers is 11 out of 10 Looney Tunes level of satire, where it does full on like TV commercial parodies. They've renamed Earth to Super Earth. Like it has my favorite line of this genre of all time, which is the note that says the bugs have been aggressively expansionist in all of their planets we've landed on. um, and and, uh, and so like
It's
it
such a good game.
yeah, and so
I love it so much.
it's like it is as not subtle and as balls to the wall as you can get on doing this. And there's very few people who don't get it, but there are still, if you hang out on the subreddit, there's still people who don't get
Oh,
it.
sure.
And you have like Warhammer has, like Warhammer, the thought experiment of Warhammer is let's create a world where fascism is true cosmologically, and that's going to like necessarily be really interesting to two very different groups of people.
Yeah. I mean, Warhammer does unfortunately have like a lot of like really just like
Yes.
left people who really enjoy it, and also a lot of people who are just straight up neo-Nazis.
Right.
And I don't know exactly what the ratio of people would have to be to get it, but just based on like everything that I've experienced, like, in looking into this movie, it definitely wasn't high enough for it, because there are like certainly examples of things that were made as satire and that are pretty universally understood to be that.
Well,
I keep saying
could
it,
I
but
throw
like
out
Blazing
one
Saddles
question
as
for
an
you?
example, I don't know. Yeah, I've never seen anyone take that seriously.
Could it
But
be
Case was saying
the
something.
circumstances of the time that that the audience was not ready for it?
Oh, definitely. I think
versus where, like, because again, once you know that it's satire, it's so hard not to see it. A satire, like looking at things like the bug smashing scene with like the parent and all the kids like smashing it, or again the children being shown the guns by the soldier and being like handed ammo and stuff like that. Those scenes are so hard not to take as pure satire once you are aware that that's what you're looking at. How much of this is that 1997 America wasn't ready for, say, the shifting nature of the right wing of the United States because of the war on terror, going into the modern era of, I don't have good words to describe the current fuckery that is going on in the modern world. Like I
think we're picking up what you're putting down, and I do think that, you know, just the like, I was 7 in 1997. I don't have like the firmest grasp on what exactly the politics of it all was back then, but I do know that just like our sort of as a just like the cultural zeitgeist around like xenophobia, the Overton window, and just like the conversations around guns, and just sort of like the real weirdness that you find with people who really really love them is so different now than it would have been when I was a child, where like my grandfather just taught me how to shoot on his 22 out in the middle of Pennsylvania. I was not a licensed gun. I was not like it was just a farm in Pennsylvania. You could do whatever the fuck you wanted. Am I allowed to curse?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Fuck yes, please. Yeah.
But no, I think that if the movie came out today, it would have a much different relationship with its audience. I mean, I think that there is just sort of a benefit to us being able to look back on it and knowing what it is. But yeah, I don't think that 1997 America was ready for that kind of satire.
I can confirm that it was not 100%. I will say that Mickey 17 also has bugs, and I do think that it kind of does the humanity part better, if you know what I like you get like a little, because this is a propaganda film and it's like satire in that way, but this gets a little too, we see what John is saying about like the mixed messages and how someone whose mindset is already just kind of in agreement with some of the things being presented here this would absolutely go over their head. They would just be like, "Yeah, kill the bugs." And I don't know. I don't even know if there are people in today's world that would see this as full satire without the aftermath and DVD commentary and a whole bunch of people talking about it. Like if it came out right now,
look, I mean, we exist
right
in a
now,
world where
fresh.
the Punisher is like such a huge thing for people. Like I had this moment a couple of years ago where I was like, man, like every other car in my neighborhood has like a Punisher sticker on it. And like that just feels creepy and weird. And the Punisher was a satire of people who went weirdly right wing with their PTSD. Like that, you know, was what the character was created as. Like we in America today are really obsessed with like things that don't make sense, like things that were created to not be for us.
People are mad at Rage Against the Machine.
The problem is that media literacy is quite literally dead in the United States. And I think that those Punisher stickers, especially like the thin blue line Punisher stickers, are the clearest indication that just media literacy is dead, and people just grab on to the explosions and the guns and the fun of it and just ignore the message because that's boring.
That's fair.
I mean, there is also, I think, what happens probably, I think, more often than we want to assume, because just like a lack of literacy and like, hey, this is making fun of you and you don't get it, is definitely part of it. It's definitely a thing that happens. But it's also possible for a media that is a satire or that is a critique to just not actually make a good case in its critique, and the part of the things that it was including just end up looking better than they meant it to. And it's it's like,
but wait, I don't want us to
like,
argue that Starship Troopers is that, because Starship
no,
Troopers, very, very pointedly, the
Yeah.
end of the movie, the world is not a better place. They have more
Right.
proficient guns and like better ships, but it is very clearly a war that is being lost.
Right.
Yes. No, it does its job well if you know what you're supposed to be looking for, right? If you are interested in engaging with the movie as a as a piece of political anything, really, right? If you just go into like, this is a fun action movie, you will miss the point. But if you are willing to engage with that as a piece of material that you should think about, then sure, then you can see it, but people have to want to think about it.
But there was some Starship Troopers discourse on Twitter a while back, as there's always some kind of discourse going on. But I remember a thread happening where someone posted just a picture of one of the bugs. I think it was when Neil Patrick Harris had his hand on the brain bug. But like the post was captioned, "Leftists want you to watch this movie and sympathize with the bug." And it's like there's a lot of replies of like, "Yes, actually, that is the point of the movie." and it did end up like, obviously the guy who posted that is not open to a whole lot of conversations, but it did provide a conversation point, it led into like, okay, like bugs are disgusting to a lot of people, and we really like the story of humanity versus big violent bug planet because it's a big righteous crusade against a gross, horrible, unknown thing. And all of our propaganda is meant to turn the group of people we need to get rid of into bugs in our head. And like, so, it you can watch it without engaging in it, but it's still, enough people now have engaged with it that it's there's a reason it is so popular now and useful as a springboard for talking about what's going on.
This is actually a thing that I just realized, and it's purely a coincidence of timing, but like the movie came out in 1997. In 1994, the Rwandan genocide occurred, and one of the most notable pieces of dehumanization in that was Hutu radio stations calling Tutsi people cockroaches, using the Kinyarwanda word Inyenzi. That act of taking a group of people and referring to them as something loathsome or that we generally just step on when we see is a classic piece of fascist and genocidal rhetoric. It's one of the reasons why bugs are such a common, like the buggers and the Formics in Ender's Game, the Rachni in Mass Effect. You got to have a bug so that you can squish it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, even the xenomorphs in the Alien franchise, it is distinctly bug-like. So here, okay, let's talk about the actual like logistics of the movie for a second. There are some things in there that change how you're supposed to interpret it based on if you see this entirely as propaganda or as a straightforward piece of like sci-fi war pulp. So one thing is the meteor that hits Earth and hits Buenos Aires. Is it the same one that hits the ship? Is it actually launched from the bug planet? Like those are left open to the audience, even though the movie presents a like, no, it's clearly launched from Klamdathu, and like, it took out the communication array, and that's why we couldn't warn Earth, and yada yada yada. But it's entirely possible to view the events of the movie as entirely accidents, like, or at least the bug side of it, like. The inciting incident for human interaction with the bugs at the start of the movie is that specifically a group of Mormons moved onto a planet that was bug territory, and they were wiped out. And it was like, look at what the bugs fucking did to us. And even though it's very clear that it is supposed to be their territory. And then we get into like the whole, like, did they launch an asteroid at us? And like, there's a lot of the movie that I think supports the scenario that it's a coincidence, and that this is the entire movie is propaganda using a natural disaster to like prop up this like villain.
Right, because just practically, how long would it take an asteroid to reach across the Milky Way?
A long goddamn time.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's not traveling at the speed of light.
No, it said
and
they were
even-
propelling it with just like bug gas.
Yeah. So then then it would have taken like literally tens of thousands of
Mhm.
years to
And what
cross
like
that.
and what struck me, like, as far as like that, like the painting of the way that the justification for the aggression was painted, is that like we had the asteroid, but it's clear that things were all they were fighting already. And like in the intro at the beginning, the section on the little video series labeled "Why We Fight" was just a description of the bugs' weapons. It's just like, why do we fight these bugs? Look, they have a bunch of asteroids that they can use to attack us. And like it, like that's like that was it. It's just like there are bugs and they have weapons and that's bad. There was a news clip, or which one of the propaganda clips.
Well, like
They said
I need to say this one because I realize I'm going to get crucified by certain groups for this one, but it's so similar to the current mantra of what would happen if Iran had nuclear weapons.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
They're 5 days away for the last 30 years.
Listen, it's we have to preemptively self-defend ourselves from these people that might be a threat someday.
yeah,
Because look at how scary they look.
yeah,
They
and
look so scary. They have mandibles. Click, click, clack.
yeah, and one of the propaganda clips, the guy said the future of this planet is going to be human, not insect. And so it was just entirely this like, aren't they gross? Wouldn't it be awful if gross things were here? And this got gross. And I had said in kind of our pre-conversation that one of the reasons I've been thinking about this movie, and one of the reasons it's at the forefront of a lot of our minds, is that I do like a lot of local political stuff. I do a lot of specifically LGBT activism, and this sort of image, that sort of like, look at this gross group of people, look at this gross way of being, they're going to be in your house and in your schools making everything gross, don't you want things to stay the way they are? Like that sort of fear mongering, that sort of weaponizing of disgust is key to just getting people riled up and getting people to clamoring for violent expulsion of a group of people from your world.
The two most potent tools in war propaganda is fear and anger.
Yeah.
You make people afraid of a usually non-existent threat, and you make them angry at something that is a little bit different from them, and then you can kill that. It's not hard.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
really not hard at all.
Yeah, I mean, like that's exactly what the populace of the movie goes through. So one thing I want to talk about with you guys is that in the movie, and specifically the commentary tracks, they have a lot of conversation about the arc of Johnny, who goes through this whole sort of like inoculation, presenting here's fascist ideas and here's how you become a fascist, and here are all the stimuli and triggers that will like push down this like fascist path for you, for this character. And I find Johnny a really interesting one, so I kind of want to talk about him as sort of like the prototypical, like this is the ideal beautiful dumb Nazi that we're talking about here, right? He goes through this whole scenario. He is pushed by society into seeing citizenship, which in the society of the movie is linked directly with military service, as being a noble cause, and most importantly, the only way he'll have sex with Carmen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very important.
It is in deleted scenes. Like her whole deal is her father doesn't think a non-citizen is worthy of his daughter. And so there's this huge element of the character that is literally throwing himself at a girl. And that's how he is in a position to be enraged by an accident, a natural disaster, an asteroid that collides with Earth that cannot possibly come from a different arm of the galaxy, as they try to explain in the movie. And so he's galvanized into this fascist like ideology. And it's so fascinating watching the progression of this character. Like he's not a good guy. Like in this movie, Dina Meyer jokes that he's a breast man in the commentary track, which I really appreciate that, she's allowed to say that. But, he's so in love with Carmen as a character. And so resistant to any of the other sort of like bonds that he's made over the course of this. But then, accident happens to his hometown, and all of a sudden he is so focused on this like vengeance that has been put forward by the state. Like that is the crazy part about it. Like that the state, it becomes his protective parent in the form of, what is it, Sergeant Ratzek, Lieutenant whatever his role is. He becomes this like father figure for him. And that is such an interesting arc for the character. Like, again, teased on to do this because of like adolescent like urges, and then forced into a role that is going to consume his entire life.
Yeah, and that was what stood out to me on the last rewatch, of the way it shows the different phases of vulnerability that these ideas set in. Like, all of them grow up in kind of the stew of the culture that views people who have done military service as inherently more valuable, and with the teachers that are veterans telling stories, and just like they're surrounded with
The teachers. We should pause, because I don't know if we're going to talk about it in the next section, but we have to mention Rue McClanahan as one of the teachers who is blinded by her service. But a goddamn Golden Girl gives all the goddamn exposition about about the bugs. So in this movie, so we should note that the teachers are all horrifically scarred, and she is blind, and so they have like all of this like acid makeup on her face.
Yeah.
The movie is shockingly very good representation of, and this is one of the things that makes it, I think, hit much harder in the modern lens, is because this movie and the arc that like Johnny Rico goes through, it's just the alt-right pipeline. He's just a young kid who's told that no, actually, the violent urges and impulses that you have are good and you should lean into them. And anything that tells you that you have to have feelings and that you can't just punch your problems, anything that looks different than you should just shoot it and blow it up. And that's good and fine. And you should nurture that.
Yeah, I mean, even the sports they play are violent. Like this, they play this like this like XFL version of football.
And I thought it was interesting the way sports kind of played into that prologue, and I thought made it kind of like a good picture of what the lure is for like military propaganda, for fascism, and just like for the kind of reactionary push that we're getting, in that there's sports have this kind of like, right, the microcosm of struggle that is what makes sports exciting, right? It's like you get war stories out of it, you get heroes, you get hierarchies, you get a single cool guy who did a big thing and it brought us to victory, and
you get great man history.
Yes, and you have roles in it, of people to look for, and so it's one of the reasons that once you get out of it, there's less. Once you get out of sports, once you get out of school, once you get out of college, like there's less kind of pre-packaged narratives to slot yourself into, where you have a function that is clear that you're fulfilling and succeeding at. And like you said, the military, Ratchet, they step in for that. Even because when he was deciding to go to the military, parents were saying, "Well, you can go on vacation. That's better than the military." And
agreed.
One of the reasons he was able to push it is like he told Carmen's like, "Well, the Federation will have all I need. I'm coming with the clothes on my back, and they will take care of me." One of the things I thought was really insightful, right, was that in the class that they're in the beginning, the teacher tells him, like, "Hey, I'm just teaching you critical thinking. You have to decide for yourself." And when he is talking to his parents, he says, "Actually, our teachers discourage us from going into the military." And it's such a conspiracy theory crank kind of move, right? Is you set up an information environment where the conclusion you want them to have is obvious, and then say, "But I'm just asking questions. I'm just going to let you make decisions."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like the state exists for these kids at every phase of their life. like Neil Patrick Harris like seems to be taking part in like the like screening process for like the psychics component of this movie, which is such a wild extra detail that just like makes the sci-fi for the sake of being sci-fi. But yeah, like they're always actively participants in this all. Man, look, we talked about Rue McClanahan, we talked about Rassick, we talked about the Starship. We need to talk about how like every goddamn adult is like seriously scarred in terrible ways for just a moment there, because like that's such a part of this movie. Like that's such a part of the satire of this movie, that the world that these kids are growing up into is inherently scarred.
Mm.
That's one of the things that should have made this movie like hit better as satire, because you have the sort of like utopian fascist society existing as sort of like a thin veneer over the fact that you're constantly at war. Most of the people that you know as a young adult are going to die millions of miles from home in some horrible tragedy, and the ones that survive are all horribly disfigured because of this pointless war. Like, it should have done better than it did
Mm-hmm.
if people paid even the littlest bit of attention to what was happening in the background.
They didn't. Yeah, no, I mean, like that's the thing. They didn't. But I still think this movie is a cult classic, and I think the fact that we are coming into understanding that it is the satire in the modern era is good. like it's
Yeah, and like part of it obviously is just the company I keep and the kind of people I talk about movies and politics with. But even just from looking at conversations invoking this movie like online and in general discourse, it is very useful for getting a handle on the media environment we're in, on the political environment in, and the ways that we are convinced to dehumanize people, that it would be useful for powerful organizations if they had our permission to treat horribly.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems more, I see it being useful for that more often than I see it being used as empowerment for people who want to be fascists. Now, like the image that the book gave us, that the influence of the idea of man versus bug, I think captured the like the need for easy enemies in eternal struggles, and a cause that could be solved with a lot of violence to the gross outsider people. Like, I think that's the reason that imagery caught on so hard is because of how useful that idea is, and how there's some messed up part of all of us, or most of us, that wants the problems with the world to be that easy and that black and white. But I think the movie introduced a useful piece of the conversation about these images, and its legacy is, I think, helpful more than it is giving fuel to people who want to do bad things with these images.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, the book and the movie inspired like so many other properties and left such a mark on sci-fi. And I think that there are other things out there that sort of like do not necessarily better, but a little more effectively in like doing that satire. Like Ender's Game does a fantastic job because they have literal kids fighting in these wars. And they're still fighting against like this hive mind bug enemy. And you get to the end of the first book and it's like, oh, we just blew up an entire planet, wiped out this entire species, and it was entirely unnecessary. We traumatized all of these kids. We did this horrible, horrible war crime. This guy's going to have nightmares for the rest of his entire life, and almost literally killed himself at the age of 15. And we did not need to do that. And it was just like, it was such a hard-hitting book the first time.
Yeah.
Deeply disappointing. Orson Scott Card is as just a human being. The book just did such a good job of like being like a satire of like the military experience and that kind of xenophobia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're preaching to the choir here. Like I have such strong love for the Ender's Game series, and both the Shadow and the Speaker for the Dead offshoots that came from there. Yeah. Oh man. It is so formative of a sci-fi work Like the book is so important and influential on things that came after it. And this movie, I think, has forever changed the lens by which we look at Starship Troopers. Like, I don't think anyone can go back to the book without the lens of the movie, like really taking the piss out of it and not like see those components to it as well. Like the world that they present, like this world where civilians and citizens are defined by if you've like served in the military and so forth. Like this whole thing is, it is a interesting thought experiment that Heinlein puts forward in the first place. Like when I first read about this, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense in military service to like guarantee like participation in government. That doesn't make like zero sense to me. But that is, again, why this works so well as a fascist piece of propaganda that is then, again, the piss is taken out of it. Like that it presents a world where you have some foundation of at the very least, a thought experiment conversation to sort of like build out on and sort of develop into, here's the world that we're presenting to everyone. It's just so, like, the movie is so goddamn camp when you actually get down to it that you can't take some of this stuff too seriously if you're looking at it with adult eyes.
Right. I will say the citizenship thing specifically hit hard recently, like on this last watch, in reference to everything that's happening around us, and in reference to the fact that there are people who have served this country who have had to leave this country most recently, even after giving that. And just the question of like, do you deserve rights for just being a person? Which you do. Why do you have to give, like that whole, we don't give anything for free, but it's like, rights are just something that people should have, right? So it's like an interesting thing, and it hits harder now as we, kind of stare in the face of fascism and the thought of, even nationalization and birthright citizenship maybe even dissolving. It is a really strange conversation. It gets harder on this watch as we kind of wonder, what does citizenship mean now here?
Yeah, because that's a really good observation, and I think it shows kind of the thought experiment that Highland Point that does of asking that question of who deserves participation, who deserves protection, and he ties it to kind of the imagined and kind of more straightforward, meritocracy, sacrifice of the military. Like, well, this is a way that filters out who deserves and who doesn't. And I think the the world that has resulted from a society that takes some of the givens seriously shows that kind of any structure built from that assumption of, well, the wrong people are getting the resources and having the say, we need to figure out who deserves this. Any structure built on that is going to eventually change the answer of who deserves support, who deserves rights, who deserves resources. And it's probably not going to be you making that decision. And they will eventually make the decision on what's good for them and not good for the people who quote unquote deserve it. And I think a good example of this, right? Because the recruiter who doesn't have any legs is in the book as well. And in the book, it's painted as, we put these guys up front to scare off the kids who aren't taking this seriously, right? Like, if you can make it through this gauntlet and you still have the guts to move forward, then you are really ready to sacrifice, for mankind. And then the movie, 30 years later is like, actually, just all this just messes everybody up who tries to give anything to it. And like, it's just a looking at these ideas further down the road and seeing the messed up, probably more realistic implications of where these thoughts go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, it's just such a rich world of violence and scars that they present to us in this movie. we are going to try to keep this from being too sprawling of an episode. So I want to give John and Samantha your space to sort of like say anything that you haven't had a chance to yet. But I do want to try to wrap up this panel to give us not too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be
I
kind
don't.
to our editor.
Yeah, exactly. Sophia, we love you.
We love you. So sorry. It's Case's fault. He talks a lot.
So
I was about to say that if Case wanted a non-sprawling episode, he should not have invited me on, because I
yeah,
cannot speak without tangents.
but
No,
on
you've
that
been
note,
wonderful,
John,
John.
what are your
Thank
thoughts
you.
about this movie? Like what are your closing thoughts about this?
I mean, my closing thoughts are just that, like, it's a good movie. It's a movie that, unfortunately, I think expected more from its audience than its audience was willing to give. But like, one last thing that I just wanted to sort of highlight is that, like, even amongst, like, intelligent people with media literacy who are willing to critically, like, analyze things, will still fall for that trap.
Mhm.
Right? Because, like, let's look, like, just real quick, Titan AE, right? The movie ends with the entire dredge species being wiped out, and universally we cheer for that as a victory for humanity, which can now build Planet Bob. But we did just wipe out an entire intelligent species. Titan AE is the most effective war propaganda film that has ever been animated, and I will I will die on that hill. But yeah, I mean, Starship Troopers does a very good job of what it's trying to do if its audience is willing to engage with it. And unfortunately, they weren't.
At the time. But
Yes.
audiences are warming up to it now, so that is a warming sensation to it, even if the world sucks.
The world
and
is
that's
already
why we have
warm
to look at
enough,
that. Yeah.
Case.
Sam Perez, what are your closing thoughts?
I like this movie a lot. I'm really glad that I've rewatched it and have been thinking about it. A lot of things have carried the torch from this and tried to do similar things of what it did, to think about fascism, to think critically about the fictional images that we kind of use as the core of our meaning making. But I'm still really impressed with the way it paints both what we get out of this sort of story of man versus bug, with just a very bleak and ultimately very sad picture of how not worth it it is. Because what I was struck by most when watching it, and one of the problems with a lot of things like this with like Helldivers, is that once you get down on the ground and guys are shooting at bugs, it's so cool. Like, it's so much fun to, once you have gotten into the mental space of, all right, there's a bunch of bugs that need to die, let's kill them. Like, it just rules. like Helldivers parried it way harder, and it was still really fun to play the missions where we're shooting a bunch of bugs. And this movie did a really good job of kind of letting you still have fun with that, and then just setting up a really, really bleak aftertaste. Like, it made me more aware of some of the tactics that are going to paint me as a bug that needs exterminating, to paint immigrants as bugs that need exterminating. And it made me do some thinking about how tempting it is to find a bug to squash as a solution to a problem. And it's so much fun. Like, the movie's fun, the movie's exciting, it gives me a lot to think about. There's a reason I share gifs of it as responses to news. It's a really cool thing that I'm very glad exists.
Yeah, I want to close this panel just by like talking about this thing that I've observed recently. So obviously there's the whole scene in the movie where the mom is like joyfully, gleefully, like watching her kids like step on bugs, and like it's like supposed to be like a creepy scene. So I've had the situation where like my daughter, who is 2 now, has been like stomping on ants and like excited about that, and I've been like, that's a little weird. Like, not just like just from the standpoint of like we don't need to have joy about some of this stuff, and me reflecting on this where like what are the lessons that we're teaching, and like how do we like carry this forward into a better tomorrow? Like, how does the next generation not take the scars of the current one? And this movie hypothesizes a world where everyone carries the scars of the previous generation. Everyone is gleefully stepping on the bugs because a world of violence is the world that they have sort of presented. And it's weird as a father to sort of like look back and say, like, where can we take a step back from violence for the sake of violence, even if it's for the sake of being like clean or whatever you want to describe it as. Like, it's just weird to take in joy at violence when you really like sort of like take a step back and like kind of observe that. And this is a movie where they are really trying to make you feel that it's very weird. On that note, we are going to transition to our next panel, which is going to be a little bit more focused on the filmmaking aspect of it. So, John, Sam, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thank you.
We're going to transition to that other episode, and then we're going to give some space for you guys to do some plugs separately. So we're going to hand it off to ourselves in the future Case and Sam. Here you go.
Have you ever sat on a long commute or a dull day in the office and let your mind wander back to the days of rectangle pizza, bowls and bowls of sugar cereal, and gushing over your favorite cartoons and movies in school, and worry that those favorites from childhood won't hold up today? Well, the Saturday Morning Confidential podcast answers those questions for you. Host Maddie Limerick sits down with artists and creators of today to pull back the veil of nostalgia to talk about what's great and what we would change in hindsight years later. So pull on your comfiest PJs, pour yourself a bowl of your favorite cereal, and take a deep dive into the files of Saturday Morning Confidential. Releasing bi-weekly on Saturdays, available on your favorite podcast platforms and at certainpov.com.
And we're back. All right. So the room has changed. Previously, we were joined by John and Sam and me. Sam and I are still here because this is our show.
Yep.
That's how this works. But now we are joined by Keith Lehtinen.
Hello.
And by Mitch Punpayuk.
Hi, how's it going?
And it is so wonderful having both of you back on. But Mitch, it's so wonderful having you on because it's been so goddamn long.
It has been a while. It has. I'm so glad that you brought me back for Starship Troopers, though, because I have a actual great connection to this movie, like a personal connection to this movie.
Oh, excellent. Well, so we spent some time last in panel 1 talking about our experiences with the movie. Suffice it to say, I was the target demographic for both the non-satirical and the satirical standpoint for it. Like, I was excited about here's a bug killing movie and that has boobs. And it came out when I was 13. So it was exactly the kind of movie that I wanted at that moment. And as I've gotten older, it has matured with me. And I appreciate the satire way more as I get older. Every time I watch the movie, I there's more that I find appealing about it. That's my connection with it. Sam?
I was going to say, you'd be surprised that 15-year-old me was also in that right demographic.
Sam, do you want to give a quick synopsis of your experience?
Sure. I'm older, so I went to the theaters to see it. I was like 17, and I enjoyed the film, but I hate bugs, and so I spent a lot of the time with my eyes closed. So it did take a long time for things to sink in, but I knew from the get that there was something off about this film, and yeah, I still enjoy it. I very often do distract myself still through some of the battle scenes with the bugs. I don't like bugs. So that's where I slept on this movie.
That's fair. I mean, there's a thing called the arachnid response, which is humans' immediate response to a bug-like thing. Just like we can't help it. Like that's just a natural instinct that we have. So it makes a lot of sense on that front. But so for you guys, we're going to have more of a conversation about the movie, but I want to hear what your experiences with it are. And Mitch, you've teased now quite a bit. So let's hear it. What's your experience with the movie? And yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I remember watching that preview as a 15-year-old and was like, oh, I've got to go see this in the theater. Went and saw it in the theater. And then, 6 months later when it showed up on DVD, I went and bought that DVD. I didn't even own a DVD player at that time. I bought that
Wow.
DVD. I wouldn't get a DVD player for another 2 years when I graduated from high school.
Oh, wow.
Yep. So
Did you at least have like a laptop or something to play it on, or nothing?
1997. 1998. There was no laptop for me.
That's true. Yeah.
Nope, nothing. It just sat there waiting for me to get a DVD player.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a movie that if it hits you right, it hits you real good.
I mean, it's like just like you said, it wasn't until much later in my life where I started to understand the satirical side of the whole movie, and loved it even more.
That's awesome. So is the DVD thing the personal connection that you were talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. That's the personal connection. It's so much that I enjoyed that movie so much. I went and bought a version of the movie that I didn't even own the format for.
That's fantastic.
My first DVD, obviously.
Remember when DVD collections were like a big thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Physical media. All right, Keith, how about you? What's your experience with this movie?
So I was 14 when it came out, so I was right in the middle of you guys. And I honestly cannot tell you I remember watching it for the first time, but I really, really, I liked it. I remember liking it. I remember when I watched it was when I first became aware of actors. You know what I mean? Like when you first start tracking actors from project to project. And that was the first time I really watched it. And yeah, I really thought it was very cool in that way. I also was a young male, and I'll be flat out straight up with it. Dina Meyer is one of my first crushes ever, and I've followed her from project to project, so this is a special movie for me. And yeah, I just have very strong. This is also one of the first movies I think I had a very strong opinion about. So yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is a good movie to have strong opinions about. There's a lot going on in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
It's funny that you bring up the actors part. Like, none of these actors, other than Rue Callahan, I don't know how you say your name, and Michael Ironside, are really the only like big actors in the movie.
Yeah, they talk about that
time.
in either it was the special features or it was the director's commentary. I forget which, but there was a lot of conversation about how, because they wanted people, and here's sort of a funny thing. The line is really weird. They wanted people who looked authentically the right age.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, when you look at the movie, like, they all look like they're 30.
Yeah.
All the high school scenes, which were shot later in the production. The almost all of the action stuff was shot before they did the high school stuff. And so they're as old as they could possibly be in this movie, and they are looking as old as they could possibly be. The ones who were the mobile infantry were the ones who did like really hard boot camps and like were working out a lot while they were like filming. Dina Myers makes fun of Casper Van Dien for looking like kind of pudgy at the start of filming, and like makes notes of it during the shoot, or like during the director's commentary, where it's like where he's like more ripped versus less ripped, which Dina Meyer, I guess, is allowed to say that to Casper Van Dien, but like no one else could really make those kind of jokes to him.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to guess that the whipping scene is near the beginning when he's the most ripped, or
no, he
started chubby,
loses weight while they're filming, so he starts off pudgy, or like quote unquote pudgy, but it's Casper Van Dien. Yeah, exactly. Like it's just this wild element of making a movie. So on that note, I mean, we're talking about the cast. Like, yeah, the cast is a lot of, at the time, unknowns who would then go on to have their big break. I will. The other one who I would say is Neil Patrick Harris had a pretty well-known
that's true. I didn't
position because of Doogie Howser. Like, I knew him as Doogie Howser when this movie came out. I was like, oh, that's weird. It's Doogie Howser. He hadn't gone on to do anything else, which is also an interesting thing in the director's commentary, because it is clearly done I think it's like the 2004 election, because they are making a lot of jokes about the election. Honestly, I'm not sure which election they're talking about, though, when they film it. It could have been the 2000 election as well. But
we're kind of spoiled for choice when that comes about.
Literally, when they're like Verhoeven keeps on making jokes in the commentary with the cast and crew, where it's just like, too bad it's not like the current American election, or if I was allowed to vote, maybe I could have swung the election. Maybe that would have been the deciding vote. Which leads me to think that it is like the 2001 or maybe 2004. It's certainly before How I Met Your Mother, because Neil Patrick Harris is so quiet and pensive and like just not the star in the room that he has not blown up yet when they're making this. And so it's weird because he, went on to have a huge amount of success. Like he's borderline a professional celebrity at this, like in that he's a celebrity who is paid to be just a celebrity at this point. Like he barely does a role anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's the kind, I always think of it as he's the kind of star that can show up on a television show for one episode, and the episode is the episode Neil Patrick Harris showed up. You know what I mean? That's what it's known as.
Yeah. But like the rest of the cast, like we said, not a lot of big names. One of the things that I think goes into that is because they are showing younger people, it's like from the perspective of the younger people, there are not that many like quote unquote adults in this movie. Like these are a bunch of like high school, like the timeline on this movie is like kind of wonky, but we're still talking like a couple of years at most, for for the scope of this movie. So these are people graduating high school. And for the most part, like their career is taking place in what would have been their college phase, like the 18 to 22 phase for this movie. So there aren't a lot of people who are the grown-ups in the room. And the movie has this element that is really cool, which is that all of the quote unquote grown-ups are horribly mutilated. Like it is a recurring thing that there is a missing body part or some kind of scarring on anyone who is a civilian, or pardon me, a citizen. The civilians are the only ones that are spared, and that's Johnny's parents. But like that's why we see so many prosthetic arms. We see, like there's the guy at the recruiter who is missing his legs. And the book has takes it from it's the same thing, but it's supposed to be a scare off versus the movie is just like, no, everyone's like fucked up.
I always remember him as the ME from CSI Las Vegas.
There are a ton of because we talked about who's like the famous people, but there are a ton of character actors and people that would hit later that are just nothing characters. Amy Smart has one line.
I know.
Yeah,
it's true.
And then the one that got me was Timothy Odmanson from Psych and Gallivant.
Oh, yeah.
He is the psychic guy on the advertisement, and that's it. And I paused it. I was like, "What? Why is King Richard here?" There's a bunch of little background. I'm like, "What? What's his name?" Father Gabriel from Walking Dead is Sugar.
Yep.
So
Seth Gilliam.
Yeah. Thank you. I couldn't remember his name. So yeah, lots. It was kind of funny to see all these familiar faces. So yeah.
And of course, the voice of Lex Luthor from the animated series.
Oh yeah.
Yes, Clancy Brown. Oh yeah. We should.
Clancy Brown.
We mentioned Clancy Brown. Clancy Brown is amazing and is amazing in this movie.
Yeah. The best character. My notes say he is the best character.
Yeah, well, and he's the best character in the book too.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
So, never reading the book, how much do we differ from in the movie from the book?
Tons.
Okay.
And this is a good segue into talking about the challenges of adapting this book to screen,
right?
Which is a thing that we normally do when we do these fifth episodes, where we talk about movies that are not deeply flawed in ways that we need to fix it, but suffered setbacks that they overcame as a proof of concept that the show tries to do. Yeah, so let's start at the very beginning, which is that this was not supposed to be a Starship Troopers movie.
Was it supposed to be?
It was an original IP that eventually got rolled into the Starship Troopers franchise.
So you mean all the way back in 1997? 1996 is when it's filming. We're talking about what can we roll into IP even back then?
Well, yes and no. I mean, this is in pre-production, so take it for what you will. Heinlein, however, is a very well-known and well-regarded author. Well-regarded with some, a big asterisk next to it because of a lot of his political leanings and content.
I was going to say well-regarded for some people.
For some people, yeah.
To a degree.
for a particular group.
Yeah, so the movie was supposed to be Bug Hunt at Outpost 7 initially, the original working title for it. And it has a lot of the themes that go on in this movie. Now, it was then like the producers that came on and were like, hey, it's actually kind of similar to a property that we have the rights for, and basically like rolled it into Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Now, on that note, in terms of like how accurate the adaptation is, so that's the starting point, that it was just this jingoistic satire of space military stuff that then got rolled into one of the original works about space military stuff. You know, the book is a very influential work for a lot of authors. Like, it's very heavy, like inspiring for like Warhammer 40K. We talked a lot about this in panel 1, so I'm sorry guys for those who are listening to the episode and being like, they just said this like 20 minutes ago. Yeah, but let's start with the big thing. They're called the mobile infantry.
Right.
You know why they're called the mobile infantry?
Why is that?
Because they move around, but they don't in the movie. In the movie, they're just people with like basic armor and guns. But in the books, they're in full mech suits.
Oh.
Yes.
So that's the thing people usually point to as like the big difference. And the reason they're called the mobile infantry is because all of the mech suits had jump jets. So they like leap around and so forth. So anytime you've played a sci-fi military game where like you've got that, like Mass Effect Andromeda, for example, like anytime you've got like a jump jet military system or military armor system, it is definitely inspired by Starship Troopers, the book.
And I'm guessing that's a saving on production kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And they have art for it. They did look into trying to adapt that element of it in two ways. So we're going to have these like pods that the troopers were sent down in, as opposed to coming down in like a drop ship.
Almost like Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. Yes. Or what was the Halo game? ODST.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the drop troopers for that. So there was going to be the pods for dropping the soldiers into position, and then they have mock-up art for the armors that they would wear that would have these jump jets. And one of the big reasons why it was vetoed was because of the jump jet specifically, that the wire work was going to be like way too complicated to do anything remotely choreographable on a movie of this budget.
Right. And I think it's important to point out that the director did not finish reading the book.
No, he didn't. And I was about to get to that.
He said it was too boring. So
too boring.
Yeah. He admits it in the commentary track that he never read the book.
Yeah.
And Neil Patrick Harris gets so mad at him because it's like, you made us read it.
It's so good.
It's important for the actor meat to read.
Right.
The meat. And that's a good way to describe the characters in this movie. So that's a big part of the difference there. So Starship Troopers, the movie, goes on to be really influential for a lot of stuff. Obviously, StarCraft is a big area for it. There's all kinds of things that are inspired by it. Weirdly, the armors from Starship Troopers that get reused in a season of Power Rangers.
Oh, no. They're used in everything.
Yeah, they're used all over.
2001 Planet of the Apes, Power Rangers, Firefly. There's something else. Imposter, I think. Babylon 5, it was in at one point. They reuse it in everything. It's great. It's like looking for IKEA furniture in movies. It's like I look for Starship Trooper armor.
But I mean, like talking about this, the behind the scenes stuff for this movie. So like pre-production. So obviously we're really far afield from like the original stuff. So other things. Main character is not from Buenos Aires in the movie or in the book. Buenos Aires is the area that gets attacked, but he specifically in it notes that that's not a huge motivator for him because he's not from there. So that's one of those like big changes there. Dizzy is a boy, not surprising in the book.
Still a love interest?
Not a love interest.
Oh man,
that would be surprising if
I would
the
love
1950s sci-fi novel featured a love interest like that. And the bugs are way more advanced in the book. The bugs have like actual tech. And the process for them seems to be they're more similar to like the Formix from Ender's Game. Again, we talked about Ender's Game so much on the previous session, so I'm so sorry for anyone who's listening to this. But like the comparison is apt there, where it's not only are they insect-like in terms of their numbers and so forth, but they are extremely advanced technologically speaking, and so it's a situation where it's very clear that humanity is on the back foot in the book. The movie treats that or takes that as the thing that they're trying to hide from the cast, at least, if not the audience. And so that's like another kind of difference in the structure there. I mean, obviously, there's just with the differences that I've already outlined, like there's so many differences because like, you know, the Buenos Aires thing is like totally removed. It has been a long time since I've read the book, so I don't want to like go too deep into that because I just don't remember all of that. But back when this movie came out, I read the book because of this movie. And I was very excited about it. And I wasn't as upset as some people. I get the people who are big fans of the book who didn't like how the movie stripped out all the cool sci-fi stuff from it.
Mhm.
And so in that regard, I can understand like a fan response being like, oh, they took out the things that are the unique stuff about Starship Troopers, and now it's just generic space military. But that said, like enough of the beats like follow it. The changes to the bugs to be more like biological in terms of their technology is not hugely relevant, and we actually don't. I am of the contention that we don't have like a really strong sense of what their technology is because it's so surface how we interact with them. Like obviously the warriors aren't really that advanced, but like we don't know that much more about them. So that there's all those elements there. I want to just like throw this question out there to everyone because it sort of influences how I see the movie, and like I'm curious how you all see the movie. The asteroid that hits Earth. Do you think it came from the bugs?
No.
I am now of the impression that it came because Carmen changed the
Thank you.
navigation, the course.
No, that's a huge fan theory that that asteroid their ship hit, that was the one that hit Earth, and they redirected it by hitting with their ship, and they're the ones who actually caused everything. So if you think about it, everything's Carmen's
So
fault.
it's an inside job, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which
It's
but
a false
that
flag,
even assumes that like the movie stages it in such a way where you're supposed to like imagine that it is the same one that hits Buenos Aires, but like the timeline on it doesn't make any sense. Like that asteroid would have to be flying so fast, like it'd have to be flying at light speed for it to arrive.
The timeline in the movie itself, the way that, like you were saying, this is what 2 to 4 years in their timeline. Like, what's his face? Jake Busey, his character's still a private at the end of the movie. So it's like, how do you not move up? I know he went to squad leader at one point, but you still got to move up a little.
Because he doesn't want to. He keeps refusing them. That's actually a character point. I remember that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a huge Jake Busey fan. So,
yeah, he makes a note that that it's not for him after having his limited experience as squad leader.
Fair enough, but I'm just saying, like I guess you're in the middle of a war. They'll keep any soldier they want to keep, I guess.
Yeah. No, that was actually
I'm just saying, timeline seems very strange.
That was my number one note. Was I wanted to talk about that fan theory because it does kind of feed into everything else about the movie. About are we justified in what we were doing? Because there is kind of like set up an idea of like we were already fighting them, but were we attacked at any point before we were fighting them? And if not, why were we fighting them?
the asteroid or the meteor, I should say, is the big trigger for like the full-on war.
Yeah.
They were having conflicts, and they noted that there was the Mormon expansion into the bug territory that got wiped out, which they present as being like the bugs are the attackers in that scenario.
Exactly.
Even though they say in the same sentence who moved into bug territory.
Yeah, like if I lay down in my backyard and I put my hand in a ant hill, like it's not their fault that I put my hand there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I am personally of the opinion that the asteroid that hits their ship is completely unrelated to the meteor that hits Earth.
Fair.
I mean, yeah.
I am of the opinion that it is a random meteor that was used as propaganda to subvert the populace. That's just how I interpret this movie.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and I think this movie allows for it to not be, because like the movie is structured as a promotional piece, as propaganda.
Right. It's almost like an unreliable narrator. The movie itself.
The movie is intensely unreliable.
I mean, is that because you're watching the Do You Want to Know More like reel? Is that what the movie actually is?
I think it's kind of like that. It's supposed to be structured, off of like Leni Riefenstahl's stuff, in terms of like a lot of the shot composition, and the introduction of the "Would you like to know more" stuff is all that's original to the movie. That's not part of the book. There's no equivalent kind of scene, and I would argue that like it is like we are watching a movie that the Federation is putting out, or what is it? The fleet? What
fleet? Yeah, I don't remember what they're called. I think it is Federation.
Yeah, I think it's Federation that they call their society. We're watching a movie that they put out that has little bits of like little drop-in moments of propaganda reels. So I think it's way more like a World War II era, movie that has like news reels that go at the start of it. But I think it is supposed to be a constructed narrative that exists within the world of the movie.
So I did have this question because in previous watchings of it, I've never questioned it. But in this one, did Michael Ironside and the guy that signs them in when they lost their limbs, is that also fighting bugs?
I am not sure.
Okay.
It is a society that is fueled by violence. They go a lot into that description in the movie about how violence is really important and has shaped the society that they live in. So whether or not they are participating in other conflicts, which is, I guess, possible, we never see it. So
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I always interpreted it as the bugs, that humanity was already engaged in lesser conflict with them, but they needed to have like an official all-out war so that they could like really take it hot.
Mm-hmm.
We talked a lot about this last night, but we should note the fact that like the world kind of sucks right now.
Hell yeah.
The will they, won't they of a war is a thing that we're very much living through at the moment.
Yeah. It's, by the way, it's just to lighten it up. It's the United Citizen Federation is what they call themselves.
Okay.
The UCF.
Oh.
Yeah, obviously this is like, it's propaganda within a movie about propaganda. So it's got really nice layers to it. I really like that about it.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion, because we talked about the technology level of the bugs. I honestly don't think the bugs have technology. Like, I think what we see is what we get. Personally,
well, when I say technology, I don't necessarily mean like machines. Like they have some kind of organic technology that we are witness to in the movie.
The
I'm just saying that we don't know what
stuff.
we just don't know the limits of what they can do with that. I mean, like ants, for example. Like there are types of ants that I think they're called honeypot ants that like they just like certain members will just like consume a ton of honey and just act as like refrigeration for food for the colony.
Right.
So like there's all kinds of weird variations that like you could come up with that could be biological science that we haven't really seen in this movie, because the movie is focused on just the front lines.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's very much what I think you see what you get, but definitely I think there could be biological advantages that we're not seeing. But yeah, like, because that's a big discussion online, is like, what are they hiding? It's like, I don't think they're hiding much. Like, I don't think the brain bug is honestly a big deal.
Meteors across the galaxy at the planet, right?
Well, and they make a statement that they colonize other planets by just throwing spore at other planets. Yeah. And I'm like, is that the thing they're shooting? Like, did they use that to defense?
Oh,
like,
are they firing sperm at the?
Like, I was like, yeah. And I was like, are you telling me? Because my roommate had never seen this movie, and I was watching it with her, and I was like, so the theory is that the bugs somehow sent this meteor pinpoint accuracy across the entire Milky Way galaxy, because we see it's on the other side of the galaxy.
Yeah, they're on different spiral arms. That's insane, the distance.
And I'm like, so how did they do this? And I'm like, how did they do the math? Like, what? I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all. And that's why I was like, yeah, so we were talking about like the propaganda of it all and everything like that. So yeah, but no, I literally think like we're the invading force and we're disturbing them. So yeah,
we are super the bad guys in this movie.
And humanity's never done that before.
This episode is coming out as episode 175, and it's coming out in the wake of 174 was our episode on Troy, and that's another episode where we're talking about it's a movie actually about the bad guys. Yeah, the Greeks are the bad guys in that movie, which is an interesting thing to do in your Troy movie. But we're back-to-back military movies where the leader or the main characters are actually the bad guys in it, which is kind of cool. I find some of the scenes of the satire, like the would you like to know more stuff, disturbing on a level that I didn't understand until I had a child. I told the story last night, but the scene where they like stomp on the bugs is now a thing I think about constantly, because my daughter is like trying to step on ants, and I'm like, oh man, am I promoting violence by like encouraging like a scenario of like swatting flies and so forth?
I mean, as long as you don't have a real like Cheshire grin like that mother did, like that was evil.
That's the most disturbing moment in the entire movie to me. Like by a wide margin. I still like, I remember watching it the first time being like, what the hell was that? And the movie just kept going. I was like, what? Like, it's still, it makes me uncomfortable when I think about it.
Yeah. On that note, It's a war movie. So I have shot battle scenes before. Like I've been an extra in sci-fi war movies before, and I've had like small incendiaries like go off near me, and it's like a very stressful kind of situation. What I'm getting at is a lot of the actors got hurt on set. Dina Myers and Casper Van Dien both talk about how they got injured at various points during the filming. It's a war movie. Like it's a lot of characters are jumping in the ground, like wearing like armor and carrying props. Like there's a lot of like cracked ribs or like like dislocated shoulders and stuff like that in the story. I can't remember specifically what they said their injuries were because it didn't actually stop filming. But it did, like, both of them talked about how they got injured in distinct ways at separate points in the filmmaking.
Well, there is the scene when Rico and Carmen's other love interest fight in the middle of that like area, and Casper Van Dien gets thrown on his back, flipped over on his back onto a table, and then the dude comes down with the elbow on his chest. You can see the pad on Casper Van Dien's chest, but he still took it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think that was one of the spots they mentioned because he mentioned missing the table on one of the takes.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, it's a lot of the action, of course, is gunplay, but there is a lot of like, hand to hand, but also running around stuff, the kind of stuff you get injured on, But we know from like Lord of the Rings, you can get injured for the stupidest things. You know what I mean? Like kicking a helmet, So yeah, that's interesting though. I'm curious to see if anyone else got injured. So
obviously there's like other just like nightmares behind the scenes. Apparently when they were like the crew was on their flight to actually go film in June before the actual shoot, an intoxicated crew member mentioned a bomb and the whole thing, like,
oh my God.
I'm gonna say it's Jake Busey. I have no proof. Don't come at me. I'm just saying.
The butt monkey of this movie.
I love Jake Busey. Let me just stand on this soapbox right now.
No, it's great. He just gets abused so much in this movie. Like, I mean, and is made to be kind of like the dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, like they talk about how they want pretty dumb people a lot.
Yeah.
Like Verhoeven like talks a lot about how that was the goal. Like that's why they cast the people they did. They wanted pretty dumb people or people who looked, who look pretty and dumb. So like, with like the knife scene and like all these other things you see, like it like you love him because he's kind of a loser in this movie.
One of the things I love the most about his character is how they really pivot away from being cliche with him because he's so set up to be an antagonist. And in modern storytelling, he would stay an antagonist. But he basically becomes Rico's best friend immediately and the only person with him in the end from the beginning. And I think that's cool as hell. Like he supports Rico the entire time. Like he's like, I'm an asshole. When Rico calls him on, he's like, all right, we're friends now. I'll cool out. Like I was like, yes, men learning, like becoming friends, having emotions for each other. I love this. Like, so yeah, I will defend Ace all day long.
Yeah. Man, I'm looking through the casting notes. So Mark Wahlberg and Matt Damon both read for the part. They of course would also. I guess Mark Wahlberg had like a decent amount of cachet at this point. This is around the time. I guess it's post Good Will Hunting. Matt Damon would also have like a pretty decent amount of clout at this point.
I think Wahlberg would have worked. I don't know if Damon would have worked. I don't know. Like it's so over the top, you know what I mean? That Wahlberg could definitely do over the top is the thing. But
and I think Damon doesn't quite look like he's chiseled out of a statue the way Van Dien does.
True.
Yeah.
Wahlberg could pull that off.
Yeah. He'd be annoying, but he could pull it off.
Yeah. He would talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
He would discuss his workout routines where he wakes up before he went to bed somehow and, then gets up and works out for like 7 hours and then hydro baths and like ice before then, going to church and being with his family for the rest of the day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Just looking through my notes. I mean, I will point this out. This is the big question I wanted to bring to you guys is I personally feel, and Chase, you might know because you actually did a little research in the making of the movie and the overcoming the obstacles and such. Was this movie meant to be longer and we were supposed to see NPH more in this movie? Because it's set up as three main characters.
We're supposed to see more of Carmen. We aren't really supposed to see that much more of NPH because of the nature of his role. But there is a bunch of stuff that was deleted with like Carmen and like cut scenes, which I meant to watch, but I did not get a chance to, between Carmen and Johnny. So both in the teenage phase, because there's a whole thing about her dad not liking Johnny because Johnny's parents aren't military.
Right.
Oh.
So that's a big thing. She talks about her dad, but we don't actually see him in the movie. But apparently there was like a scene where he tells Johnny that he's never going to be good enough for his daughter because he's not a military family.
Because just like, again, not to harp too much on outside source, but there are 5 movies in this series. So I've seen them all before. And I definitely reviewed the 2 last ones because they're both anime movies, and I recommend them. They're really good. But the common thread, except for part 2, which has nothing to do with these characters, the common thread is this trio. They're the 3 characters that really matter throughout the entire series. Spoilers, they all survive. And so, like, NPH's character is the 3rd main character for all intents and purposes. And so, like, I was kind of wondering always, like, I wonder if they intended to make it 3 different stories, 3 different levels of military. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they just didn't have time for NPH. I was always thought that was weird. And, like, my roommate specifically pointed out, where's NPH? I'm like, oh, he was here 40 minutes ago. He'll be back soon. Like, yeah. So I was just curious about that, if there was anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they like put in like the scientist scene where he's the one showing like how to appropriately damage the bug. Like they had to like insert him at a couple of points just to like keep him around because he is really just supposed to be there at the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing that they cut out, I just want to finish this part. They also cut out a kiss between Carmen and Johnny after Johnny saves her life at the end of the movie.
Good.
And that tested terribly. I have a pivot from here, but Sam, say what you were going to say. I'm sorry for cutting you off.
Well, I was thinking back to the NPH thing. It's like, I think also the movie kind of makes it clear that he's like such a classified job. Like that's kind of how like they explain it away, because everything is like Johnny's perspective. Like we're with the infantry, like we're with them all of the time. Like that's where we're making this movie from. So, and what NPH is doing, what his job is so classified because he's coming up with strategies to beat the bugs, possibly even just making propaganda just last for forever. Who knows? I think that's the real reason why. If we're too far up on the top, we can't have a good satirical propaganda piece. You can't know what the wizard is doing behind the curtains.
Yeah, and this movie really relies on us not being in on like the military decisions. Like like the satire works because we are not privy to those like meetings. Like we don't know what the true story is. Like we don't, and that's the point of this movie.
Yeah, we're basically with the people that are just being sent to the meat grinder, basically.
Right.
Like,
You said basically, but I think that's what the recruitment guy actually says when you.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to pivot to the reception of this movie. So, like I said, test audiences did not like Carmen kissing Rico, but also more importantly, test audiences didn't like Carmen. That was just a general note that and some of this is sexism, that her like breaking up with, the Dear Johnny letter. Yeah. And then like getting with Xander. Oh, that was another thing they cut, like confirmation of her and Xander being a couple.
Right.
I mean, it's implied.
It's implied. It's heavily implied, but like they cut scenes that like showed it a bit more. Audiences don't like Carmen generally. Audiences really like Dizzy. Like that was a general note that people had about it. Side note, Dina Myers was originally supposed to read for Carmen, and then she read the Dizzy part and was like, no, I want it. And then just got it. Like they just gave it to her.
Obviously the better role though.
Oh yeah, a much juicier role.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, like, I mean, that's just the focus of the movie is on Johnny Rico. So yeah, they're gonna not, the audiences aren't gonna like Carmen because they didn't do the movie as a pure ensemble follow everybody storyline. It's mostly Johnny Rico. So my question is does Johnny Rico actually fall in love with Dizzy?
I don't think he does.
I don't either.
Like I think the movie wants you to like accept it. Like I would say the satirical movie that exists within the movie that is made, I think would present this as being like, and now they're together, but like we know they don't.
Yeah, but then again, is that what the story is telling you, or was that not to hate on Casper Van Dien, but his acting prowess at the time? Like, did he have many roles before this? I don't think so.
No, he was pretty, like he had stuff, but he was fairly unknown.
Yeah, so could he portray that changing over love interest at all? I don't think he could have.
I personally say that he did love her, but because I've watched all 5 movies, so it's hard to take out the canon from the other movies because she is so popular. She is addressed later on in the movies.
Oh, good.
So,
That's funny because I remember watching the second one when it came out on video, because I believe that one went straight to video, right?
yeah, I think so.
And
it's bad.
It is bad. It's like a haunted house because
Yeah.
they barely do the bugs.
It's
and
a horror movie.
Someone killing
Yeah.
people and yeah. And then I remember watching one of the animated ones. I couldn't tell you which one, but the way Johnny Rico looked in it with a long hair and like a silver streak or gray streak or something like that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, they're anime basically. Like they're not just
Right.
animated; they're anime. So
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, no. So I don't want to again derail, but their relationships addressed later on. I think in movie 5, very briefly, but I kind of gives me that impression. I honestly don't. I wouldn't narrow their relationship down to the word love. That's what I'll say. I think there's a major amount of respect there. I want to respond to what Case actually asked though, because it was about like, why did people turn on Carmen? I think another part of that is the military vision of it. So with military stories, the pilots that don't risk their life, quote, you know what I mean? They're usually not positioned as the heroic characters. So the ground troops are the romantic characters, right? That's the ones. And she's a tough, no-nonsense girl. Like, yeah, there is a bit of sexism there, but I think it's more of like, if you can call it a military rankism, almost like classism.
Well,
but
yeah, it's like a
for
brass
military.
versus the...
Yeah, I think that's part of
Yeah.
it. And so I think that, honestly, I think that was the main thing. So much that, and I think that's also why, I'm not sure again how the order of this happened, but why she got so much action at the end of the movie to kind of be like, she can get down and dirty and fight the bugs too. But I think it was a little too late at that point.
Yeah,
So,
Xander also gets a bunch of action at the end
Also,
of the movie. Like,
Xander's the worst.
yeah, he and Denise Richards were fucking before the movie.
Of course.
Oh,
She's the reason he got the part.
I
Of
mean,
course. No,
talk about someone who doesn't look they're in high school. That dude looked like he was 40.
Right.
Yeah.
My legitimate note is Xander is the oldest high schooler I've seen since Steve Buscemi in that meme. Like literally.
Yeah, just coming out to the football.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Hello,
I
fellow
think-
kids.
Hi, fellow kids. Yeah, I also think that the movie kind of sets her up to kind of be a foil, though, because, like, you have her, like, so enthusiastically chasing a uniform and, like, whatever, I think that this is very clear that that she's obsessed with this idea of the flight academy and, and of becoming a citizen and serving and feeling really, really to the point that, like, at the sports game, she's flirting with Steve Buscemi. She's flirting with a very mature other person who is a year older than them. He's going off, and
No, they're all graduating. Like,
Yeah, he's
the
in
same
the
age as
game.
they-
He plays in the game, so he has to be in school.
I thought she
Unless
said,
it was
"I'll
like an
see you
exhibition
next
game.
year," because I feel like she said, "I'll see you next year."
I think he was in an academy, so he was probably already going to be an officer, and she's still got to go through boot.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
but
like a military academy, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they're in a military academy, but like he just notes that he's going to the flight school next
Mhm.
year, and so that could be a scenario where, it could be like he's just already like got enrollment in it.
Yeah.
I took it as he's supposed to be the same age, just slightly ahead of her in terms of like the process of
I
promotion.
took it as he's like a year older than them.
That
Like,
might
he's
be
the year
it
ahead.
might be because it is
Um,
weird. He's definitely her senior officer when she is training.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, I guess that
It could have
makes
been like
enough sense.
ROTC or something, gotten
Mhm.
Yeah.
like experience ahead of
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
So
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't
It's
matter.
like we're like all making up headcanons about, oh, guys, it's just something's ambiguous about this film. Clearly, it sets you up for that because like she spends that game and even part of the dance flirting with this guy because she knows he's in the flight academy because of her ambition, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not even like that she likes him, but so like the movie sets her up already because she's an ambitious person that wants this one thing that is not related to Johnny. Johnny just wants her to his own detriment, to basically, like, even though his parents, who are not citizens, who, you know, you could argue are somewhat pacifist, they're doing well for themselves. They just beg him. They're like, look, we're rich. We'll go anywhere. We'll go on vacation. Like, they tried to bribe this kid into not going. His teachers try to talk him out of it. And to his own detriment, he decides that no matter what he wants is to follow Carmen into this situation. And he's not smart enough to be a pilot. So he's going to be fodder. He is like, his parents know that this is like a suicide mission. So like, everyone in his life is like, don't do this. So everything about this movie sets up Carmen to be a terrible person.
Yeah. She
basically, for her own ambition, allows him to follow a route that he's not really capable for. Like she, like, no point turns around and is like, you know, I don't know if the infantry is really worth it. She's just like, yes, I'm going to be a pilot, and I love men in uniform.
Right.
Are
well,
you
yeah,
be
because
wearing
like
a uniform?
I was never as observant about the fact that she basically says, like, I won't sleep with you unless you enlist. Like, she doesn't actually say that, but that's basically the criteria. And that's why she invites him to her dad's place once he confirms that he is going to enlist in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. I guess that's true.
Yeah,
but I still say that she was going to do it anyways.
She was going to do it anyway. But this gets to the point of, if
I meant sex.
Oh,
probably.
Probably anyways. But it's definitely positioned there. What it is. Getting back to what Keith said about, is Carmen responsible for this entire movie? Arguably, she is responsible for this entire movie, even if she's not responsible for the meteor.
Yeah.
Which is really funny, because she's the reason Johnny goes. Like, flat out. Like, it's surprising that Carl goes as well. But, I mean, he obviously was already, like, set up to join military intelligence. He's, you know, he's doing the, like, psychic training things.
Training.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only place that he can make his talent grow.
Right.
Yeah, the two of them, like Carmen and Carl, they've been like, they're like hardcore in this. Like, that's the thing. It's like both of his friends were so set on this life. Like, she actually says, like, oh my God, I can't believe Carl's sister got like into the pilot program. Like, she's so, like, she looks up to all these people that are going to like be these high military brass kind of people. Like, she wants to serve the Federation. Like, she is the Kool-Aid. Like, Johnny drank it.
Yes.
And so, like,
and that came from her dad, because her dad was military. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so this is like, the movie sets her up to be the foil. Like, she is kind of the villain. Like, the bugs aren't the villain. Like, Carl and Carmen are the villain. They're what effectively affects all of Johnny's decisions. And then once he is fodder, once he is low-ranking, like low-hanging fruit, like easy to die, he dumps him for her commanding officer.
Mm-hmm.
And Carl disappears because everything about his life is a secret. So, like, he's basically, like, he's trauma bonding with all the other people that are basically just collateral damage in this war.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot about how boot camps and militaries work.
Yeah.
Like, this movie, you can't say it's not true. Like, it might be weird and out there, but it's making points that speak to me, at least my lefty little heart.
Right.
We also point out the fact that Rico didn't get good enough scores to get to be a pilot, but he according to his parents was going to be going to Harvard next year.
Yes, well, I assume that's because they paid him off.
Just enough money to do so.
He probably wasn't being an engineer or something. Like, he was probably getting a level arts degree.
That's also the thing that maybe they never like discuss. Like, he's actually a poet.
Well, he's an artist. We know he's an artist.
Yeah.
He is, and maybe he was going to play on their football team.
Maybe, yeah.
So one thing I wanted to make sure I throw out before we run out of time. Big stupid action movies. My favorite thing is, of course, the one-liners. This movie is chock full of one-liners. My personal favorites: The enemy cannot push a button if you disable his hand. I love
Yeah.
that line so much. The redhead,
I scream medic all the time.
yeah, the redhead private saying, "Goddamn bugs whacked us, Johnny." I
Yeah,
say that
it's
all the
such a good
time.
line.
Like, it's so funny to me.
They laugh so hard in the director's commentary about that.
Yeah.
Like that line gets them every single time because it's such a funny line.
Guess,
I like
guess
her-
what?
I
You're
like her
dead
line
is
when
another
she's-
good one. Guess what? You're dead.
Which was it?
The yeah. Where he's
I like her line of I just want to have babies.
yes.
Like I think of that one all the time.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about like the egalitarian nature of their social structure, or like the sexless free society as it is. But we haven't talked a lot about the military restrictions on like children and so forth,
Yeah.
which is in the background of it, and it makes sense for a sci-fi story to feature it. It's pretty common to show like a control on population growth in an authoritarian state. Like that's not weird. China just did it, and it is going to fuck their economy real bad in about 5 years.
Yeah.
So do you think that in the world of the movie it's more of a illegal thing or unless you pay enough as a civilian to have a kid, or is it they sterilize you unless you can pay enough?
No, she said actually in the film that it's just easier to get a license if
Okay.
you are a
Yeah.
citizen. And
But that
so,
must
like,
be a very hard license to get.
Right.
Go to
it
military service.
sounds like you have to jump through a lot of hoops and pay a lot of money and fill out a lot of paperwork, because she was just like, it's just like so much easier to get a license. And so it was said in a way of like, if I don't do this, it could take forever to get one. So, and like it's interesting because Johnny is an only child, but like Charles' parents clearly were like citizens and they had 2 kids.
Mhm.
So maybe like that's part of the reason why he was an only child.
Yeah, that's an
But
interesting thought. Yeah.
I guess my question, like it's easier to get a license, but like what if you have a child without a license, or is it possible to have a child without a license?
I'm sure there is
I mean,
some kind
listen,
of
I'm
capital
sure it's
punishment that
always
goes.
possible.
Yeah, like they very clearly are cool with flogging people
Right.
openly. Like they talk about it. Like not just Johnny gets it, but his dad says like I would rather get that in the streets, and like that's indicating that that's common punishment. And we know that
and Zim got it
punishment-
at some point.
Yes,
Yeah.
Zim got it at some point, and we know that executions are a televised affair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wouldn't put it past the society to kill you if you have a child without, approval,
Yeah.
or at the very least, like severe punishment publicly.
Or kill the child.
Or take your
Yeah.
child away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give it to a good citizen.
Good rich citizen that can pay lots of money.
Or just a military academy. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Just throw him straight in the military. Ugh, that's grim. Like, jeez. I also want to talk about how much I wish Kitten was used more, because he was kind of positioned as Rico's fourth friend. They all got the tattoos together. I kind of wish he had survived an extra battle and been around a little bit longer, because I really liked that character. I wanted to learn more about him. He had Jimmy Olsen energy, and I really liked
Yeah.
that.
He did.
So.
Yeah.
And he's adorable.
that's
He's
why they
absolutely
killed
adorable. Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
I mean, that's the
Because you
thing. No
liked
one
him.
is safe in this movie. Like,
Yeah.
aside from the actual leads,
Yeah.
everyone, like, anyone who becomes friends with Johnny is very likely going to die.
Yeah, I knew he was gonna die. I just wanted him to last one more battle, because he died with all the cannon fodder people we don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm like, he has a
What
name.
was his name again?
Kitten. Kitten.
With an H?
No, kitten, like a cat, a small cat.
So like the movie trope of save the cat or kill the cat.
I guess so.
Yes, but this isn't a big
Yeah.
enough moment for it. I would say that the one who says she wants to have a baby is a bigger moment, because she gets dragged away into that like dark tunnel, and it's like a
Yeah.
really scary, like, oh, all of their squad is going to die.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to see more from him, probably because he's just really cute. He had like really good Chris O'Donnell energy too. He looked. a
He
little
did
Chris
have
O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell
Little,
energy.
little twinkie
Yeah.
Chris O'Donnell. I was kind of like, oh, you're kind of cute.
Definitely a look that was going in the 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, again, this is why he died, though,
Yeah, of course.
because you're like, oh, like they want you to make connections with a few of these characters so that they just die off the bat. Because the whole point is there is no glory in this.
Right.
Like, that's part of what makes this like a good subversive like satire of like all this, like a commentary. You have to kill off the people you like.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Chris
Mhm.
O'Donnell, energy kid, needed to die.
Oh,
The
100%,
kid needed
100%,
to
yeah.
be killed. And you needed to be killed quickly
No.
and senselessly because war is senseless. Like, that's like the point. Like, you have to lose him
Yeah.
in the dumbest possible way as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
There's no point in being friends. Johnny moves up the ranks not because he's great at everything. I mean, he's good at stuff, but he's not great at. Everyone's dead. Everyone's dying.
True. People keep dying. I mean, he says it. It's until I die or you find someone better, right?
Who's
Like,
left? Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. Very indoctrinated by Ratchik there.
Mhm.
Michael
Who doesn't
Ironside
even
does such
remember
a
him?
good job. Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah, that's weird.
I mean, there's a lot of trauma, and again, the timeline on this movie is wonky. It could be several years, but like,
Mm-hmm.
is it? I don't fucking know. Like, again, relating this movie to Troy, one of the biggest issues we had with Troy is the goddamn timeline of the movie doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Can I jump away from story for a second?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just
absolutely.
ask how everybody watched the movie? Because I watched the Netflix format of it.
Same.
Yeah, I did too.
I both own it on Amazon Prime, and so I watched it streaming that way, but I have the special edition DVD, and that's what I watched for the commentary tracks.
So, like, obviously, it with the 1997 special effects and green screening, stuff like that, I was surprised in a lot of the merging of the CGI and I'm guessing practical bug effects, but like there are certain scenes in the Netflix version which I'm watching on a 4K TV and it wasn't filmed in 4K or anything like that, but like you look at it and it's really good, but then sometimes it gets real grainy, like especially the Dizzy funeral scene. The outside the windows is all green screen, so they're putting in this fake sky and all the people just look super grainy. Like, did anybody else like come up against that bounce?
I didn't notice that, but I usually am not looking for that kind of fidelity when I'm looking at movies, but also entirely possible that I just wasn't really like paying attention to the background screens in there.
Mm-hmm. The main thing I noticed
enough.
was anything in space looked terrible to me. But
Except for the one time that Dizzy, or not Dizzy, Carmen and Amy Smart's character like fly
yeah, that looks great.
crazily.
Oh yeah,
That
that's a
looks
great flight.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like when they were in the escape pod in the last battle, it looked awful. It looked like midnight series on Sci-Fi Channel like quality. It looked bad, and I was really shocked by how bad that looked because everything else was kind of good, and the aliens look really good.
The launch is really bad. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about technical stuff. So for one thing, this movie was coming in the wake of Waterworld, and so that was a huge mark against it being a big, expensive sci-fi movie right after Waterworld. So TriStar really didn't want to fund this movie, so they did a pre-visualization or not pre-visualization, like they did a prototype test, a bug test at Vasquez Rocks to show off like what it looked like that Verhoeven directed, and that convinced them to actually like go on and use the movie. So another thing, talking about space stuff, they built most of those ships. Like they have a 15-foot long in two halves. What one of those like is the biggest model they have for one of those ships. So when it like separates, they're actually using practical effects. It's not all CGI.
Oh,
It's
that's
just crazy. Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of CGI in it, but like it's not all CGI. There's actually a lot of model work.
I just like the parts when a bug's like appendage goes through a person's body, I thought looked really good for the time. Like, I mean, this is after like 3 years after Jurassic Park, so I can't be too amazed, but like it still looks really good. I mean, obviously now when if we were to get a movie like this, it'd be completely all CGI, and you wouldn't really. I mean, not that stuff is looking all the time bad, but like it looked really good, the mixture of the two for that time.
Yeah, I was really impressed. Like the way they shoot the cockpit scenes are all green screen instead of like outside. But I was impressed with the details that they had to think about, like how they would do the lighting to like reflect or react to people's faces, the amount of work that goes into compositing this thing. They're doing a really good job here. There are some benefits, like the bugs, for example, don't have like particularly, they don't have human features for starters. So the uncanny valley isn't really in play there, but they don't have like naturally occurring animal features that, as far as we can tell, like their eyes are like in weird positions so that we can't really see them in most shots. There's a lot of the features that would be sort of the tip off features that you'd be looking for. Like something looks wrong about that hair or whatever aren't present on the bugs. Like they look so different that like our brains don't have anything to compare them to. Aside from actual insects, and the insects look really weird. Like when we actually look at them.
On that subject, the brain bug close-ups at the end of the movie are the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. I didn't realize how viscerally disturbing that was in memory. I was watching again. I was like, the lips and the fucking thing. Oh, gross.
Yes.
Its disgustingness still looks great, though.
It looks great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great design. I love the chariot bugs that carry it.
Yeah.
Those are really cool as a concept there. Yeah, like, man, the bug designs are really fun. And like I said, they play well with the special effects. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the bug design was thinking about how we could composite this best and do the best special effect, because they're completely unrestrained by having to make it look like anything terrestrial besides being bug-like.
Right.
Yeah.
So knowing that you are, Case, a big sci-fi fan and all that stuff, like what the inside of those ships, how did those compare to other Starship, stuff that you've seen in the past?
Oh, I mean, like in terms of the design, I think like I really like the bulky military design that they do for the ships, and so the set that they're in looks sufficient for it. I there's a lot of like bells and whistles that are kind of missing, like the technology. It's like right before the advent of smartphone and like in touchscreens becoming everything. So there's like some clunky like button layouts and so forth, but that's just a product of being from 1997. Like the computer that Carl uses to test like the psychic potential of Johnny looks so bad. It looks like a toy.
Yes,
but that's because that's what computers looked like back in 1997. And if you had a desktop computer at the time, you would remember that.
It's true.
So we are coming close to time on this one, but I do want to give you guys chances to sort of say anything that, like, if you have a note or anything that you wanted to sort of discuss. But otherwise, yeah. Like, is there anything that we haven't addressed?
Honestly, I don't think I really do. I mean, I loved going back and watching this movie and then now discussing it with you all, but nothing particularly that I wanted to get off my chest.
I wanted to point out this stupid thing I did, which is when we got to the football scene at the beginning, I realized that Dizzy was the quarterback and Carmen was literally on the bleachers. So I started writing a Taylor Swift parody song of You Belong With Me that once I finish will be posted in the Discord.
Oh my God. I will help you with that.
I'm quarterback and she's on the bleachers is what I got somewhere.
I'm quarterback and she's...
Yeah, exactly. So
Love
it's
it.
going to be my love letter to Dizzy. And to Dina Meyer in general. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah,
that's wonderful. I
was gonna say this is the first in this watch is probably the first time, and I'm sure everybody else got it, but like right after he gets done telling Dizzy that we're good friends is when Carmen tells him that we're friends or something like that. It's like Ace even comes up and says, they always want to be your friend right after they break your heart or something like that. And it's like he just said that same thing to Dizzy and obviously breaking her heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie is really good, man. Like,
yeah,
it pretends to be dumb, but it is so not dumb, and that's the thing I really love about it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and like this is a movie critic hipster thing, which is always point out. When a movie starts in media res, right? Like halfway through the movie, you're like, my immediate thought is, are you a good enough movie to do that? You know what I mean? Like, and this movie, that was my first note, was like, in media res, I don't remember if this movie's good enough to do that. And then I'm like, no, it is. I think it's smart enough that actually makes sense. And because of the propaganda angle, I thought it worked really well. Unfortunately, it reminded me I'm not sure, Kitten dies immediately because it happens in that scene. But other than that, yeah.
So last I heard, Sony is doing a readaptation of this movie, and then they're also adapting a Helldivers movie, which is kind of
the same thing
adaptation of this movie.
Yeah,
it's gonna be directed by Neil Blomkamp. So
this one or the Helldivers one?
The Starship Troopers one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the guy did District 9 and Elysium, for those who don't know. That'll be interesting.
Oh yeah. It's got
Yeah.
good style. Not a great track record, but good style.
yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about that I wanted us to get to when into discussing the Carmen response that audiences had was the response that people had to this movie, and we didn't actually talk about that. So I do want to take a minute just to be like, oh yeah, a lot of people thought that this movie was on the level. Like a lot of people thought this was a pro-fascist movie.
Of course they did.
Because people are dumb.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
It's like the people that don't understand what Born in the USA is about.
Yeah.
No, you don't understand that song.
Like this movie didn't do well. Like under the normal, I mean, it made its box office back, or its budget back in its box office, but it didn't make like the multiple of the or of the budget to score the like publicity and all the post-production stuff that usually is not listed there in the Hollywood math in it all. So this movie didn't do that well. Like it's a cult classic. It was not a huge hit at the time. That said, we don't need to do another pass on this movie. This movie received plenty of it from the fact that it was supposed to be a different property, and it was adapted a work that is so diametrically opposed to it and presented this world that now people are still waking up to and still making gifts from and still using. It's like, it's a really cool movie in that regard.
I think it was the timing. I mean, that same year we got the Star Wars special edition re-releases. We got Titanic a couple weeks later, Fifth Element, Jurassic Park, Lost World, and like all kinds of other stuff came out at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it just got buried is the problem. I think if it was, especially Mars Attacks was the same year. So you have another kind of like parody sci-fi kind of thing going. It's just, I don't know. I think it just got lost.
Independence Day was the year before.
I think so. And also, again, it doesn't have like that premier star. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that I think that might have I think the casting was right. I just don't think it was right to promote the movie. But I don't ever think that should be a consideration personally. So.
Right, and
but for general audiences, it is.
It could have blown up more if they had gone on. Like Denise Richards did Wild Things right after this, and like is a huge star. Like we said, she had this like triple whammy of this movie, Wild Things, and then James Bond, and like that made her a star. And this is her like coming out party, and it just so happens that she's hot and it's really effective, or like her career benefited really well from that whole perspective.
I mean, I don't know if I can stand for this Tammy and the T-Rex like erasure here. Like that.
I was gonna say she was in 3 episodes of Melrose Place that I remember because I watched Melrose Place as a kid.
Well, and Dina Myers was on Friends, but
yeah.
I'm just saying, it's like her being a Bond girl is like her becoming an official like celebrity. So like this is
right.
She was, Christmas something.
Christmas
Dr.
Jones.
Christmas.
With my favorite one-liner ever. I thought Christmas only came once a year. That's the worst Bond line ever. It's so bad, and I love it. But anyways, yeah.
But that's like that is the bow on Pierce Brosnan's like time as Bond, though. Like saying that line.
Let's not start talking about Bond. I'll be here all night.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And talk about a property that has weird social implications when you look at it as well. But yeah, like all right. So I think we've kind of covered what we want to say about this movie. We have spent quite a bit of time on this podcast discussing it with lots of people, and y'all are great. So on that note, where can people find you and follow you if they wanted to check out more of your opinions? And let's start with Mitch.
You can follow me on Blue Sky. I'm the Mitchpedia. Find me there.
Awesome. And Keith?
I'm also on Blue Sky, so you can follow my account, which is Keith Has Issues on Blue Sky. I don't use it very often. I'm going to start trying to use it more for my personal stuff. Mostly you can find me on Blue Sky at We Have Issues, which is my comic book podcast, which is a certain POV joint.
Woo.
Yeah, I know, right? Finally. No.
Final.
Yeah. But yeah, it's my comic book show where I review all the week's comics. I'm still trying so hard to catch up, but I'm getting 40 comics a week now, and I'm going crazy. And I have 2 stacks of comics to read out of an episode to record later. Anyways, so yeah, We Have Issues. Also, I will tease to follow some other Blue Sky accounts. Follow our other show, Jukebox Vertigo, just in case we do bring that back from hiatus anytime soon. That's our musical show. But also follow an account that's just Sci-Fidelity, because I'll have some announcements coming from that very soon.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I'm gonna make sure I'm following you right now while we're talking. All right, so we're doing plugs for everyone. So we're going to just keep this in the same basic order. John, where can people find you and follow you? Thank you so much for being on the show. And where want people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is John Lestrange, as stated previously. You may know me from the internet as the History Wizard. You can find me on Instagram at _history_wizard, because there was already a guy who took the Instagram the History Wizard. He strangely also has red hair. He's great though. He puts a lot of content up on like Teachers Pay Teachers, and like he does a lot of like really important historical education stuff. I just wish I didn't have to use the underscores. So I exist on the internet, and I have been doxxed by Nazis.
Fun.
Yeah,
Fun.
it's great.
Sam, how about you?
I keep most of my links to my stuff at my website, SamanthaLeePerez.com. That's Leigh is the Lee. Most of my online presence is just shit posting on Twitter at Skip Sandwich is my username there.
Nice.
If you're in the DC area, you might see me around. I am plugged in with several local activism groups. I am vice president of a nonprofit called Equality Arlington. We do activism for LGBT rights here in the county that I live in. That's at equalityarlington.org if you want to see what we're up to there. Otherwise, I just kind of pop around, and you'll see me on Friends podcast. You've seen me here before. I like to stick my nose in wherever people will let me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your thoughts about this movie. I super appreciate having both of your perspectives on this one.
Yeah, thanks. This was this movie's given me a lot to think about in the last couple of years, so I was glad to be able to take an opportunity to condense some of these thoughts that have been bumping around.
It was nice to cross one more movie off of the list of movies I should have seen but haven't. Also on that list is The Godfather.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you should cross
it.
that one off the list too.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
It's fair.
All right, so thank you to all of our guests for coming on and talking about this really awesome movie. I love this movie. I can't think of a better thing to talk about, especially in the modern world. And we didn't know that we would be kind of sort of at war when we booked this as the 175th episode of Another Pass. It just felt like we might. And it felt like it might be appropriate, and it seems to be.
Maybe.
I will say that. For everyone at home, thank you for checking it out. Sam, where can people find you and follow you?
Well, they can find me here every time we drop an episode, and they can find me on the Discord when I absolutely positively do remember it exists, because I do all of the time. I just lurk there. I just peek at you guys all of the time. I just don't say anything. A lot like NPH. I can't tell you what I'm doing or what I'm going to do. And I can possibly read your minds. But if you have any complaints about anything that I said, ever, in my entire life, I was going to say in this episode, but you know what? Entire life. You can find Case at...
Well, yes, because I am forever the whipping boy, the literal whipping boy. That euphemism feels weird in a discussion about this movie. I am the whipping boy for all of Sam's, gaffes
mistakes,
that she...
qualms. Yeah, absolutely. All of it.
Sam constantly asks people to fight her, and when she says her, she actually points them to me.
I actually give them your address.
Yeah. But you can find me on the Bluesky at caseaiken.bsky.social. You can find me on Instagram at Quetzalcoatl5, which is my AIM screen name that I am hanging on to for dear life, even though it's impossible to spell and just reveals how pretentious I was in high school. Those are the best places you can find me if you don't want to find our Discord server. And the Discord server is great. You should come hang out. You can chat with all of us there. We all hang out on the Certain POV Discord. You can find a link to that on our website, certainpov.com. We have some people to thank now, I should note, because we now have a Patreon going that is going quite well. And so we have a bunch of people who joined at the executive producer level that I want to take a moment to thank. We should thank Micah McCaw, Carter Hallett, Sean Muir, Lee Gregor, Memento Young, Logan Crowley, Joe Mastropiero, Casey and Nancy Aiken, Adam Samter, and Keith Lehtinen.
Yay, that's me.
That's entirely the reason why you're on this episode.
Yeah.
No, it's not. We had booked the episode before the Patreon even rolled out.
Patreon, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, thank you for joining us. Thank you, audience, for tuning in for 175 episodes of the show. I'm really happy that we are continuing to talk about really cool movies. Like, the fact that it took 175 episodes to talk about Starship Troopers is kind of amazing. But yeah, tune back in for more episodes. Check out, we've got lots of great stuff in the backlog, and we've got more stuff coming up. Sam, what is coming up next?
Next time, we'll be talking about Highlander 2, The Quickening. But until then, if you enjoyed this, pass it on.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View's Another Pass podcast. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe and review the show on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com.
Another Pass is a Certain POV production. Our hosts are Sam, Alicea, and Case Aiken. The show is edited by Sophia Ricciardi. Our logo and episode art is by Case Aiken. Our intro theme is by Vin Macri, and our outro theme is by Matt Brogan.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.